Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first fully Zoom recorded class session, meaning no one is in the classroom today. Well, we're not primarily meeting in the classroom today. And as I stated in the announcement recently, we who have not done our IM presentations will be given the opportunity to share IM. Tonight's class will be quite comprehensive. We actually have a panel that will begin a little later after we do some presentations, this first portion of class, and then another panel, two back-to-back panels with folks who will be sharing some useful insight. The first group of people are individuals who are persons doing work that is addressing reductions in violence. We are going to be specifically looking at violence reduction in the city of Baltimore and in Kingston, Jamaica. Those of you who have been paying attention, of course, we have two classmates, at least two, there's three that have joined us, but at least two who've consistently joined us from Kingston. So the first panel will include a group of folks who address violence in both one group does it in Kingston, Jamaica, and the other in Baltimore. And then after that, we'll have another group, which includes a panel that actually myself and Dr. Rhoden-Trader were a part of in Kingston. But this panel includes law enforcement professionals who have done work nationally and internationally and locally as well. And we'll be talking about our work and some of the things that we've discussed as it relates to violence in both cities, both places, both Baltimore City and also Kingston, Jamaica. So because I have a great memory and I've also been taking a look at what we've done already, looking at some of the recordings, I'm going to begin tonight. First of all, welcome you all to class. And I know that battle brother number 2, this is birth order, not ranking, was actually a person who did not get a chance to share his IM. So from now until about 5:55, it is now 5:25, we'll be allowing those folks who did not get a chance to do the IMs to do that. For the Coppin and Morgan students, and I know Morgan students got this announcement specifically, what you do in our classes, including submission of your reflection, attending class in person. These are in-person classes. Tonight and next week is just different, but actually attending class in person, if you have some other issue, we've worked that out and we've confirmed it. Those in-person attendance moments count towards your points earned for the semester. In fact, Morgan, the schedule we have at our university is to submit our midterms, and I'll be basing the grades on that. So doing the IMs as a part of the participation. So tonight we have the luxury of doing an IM, starting with battle. I also want to note, and this is for Dr. Rhoden-Trader's sake, I didn't get a chance to share some exciting news. We have a member of our first cohort joining us, a gentleman by the name of Curtis Pope. As we wrap up the IMs, I'm going to have him introduce himself as long as he has the space to do so. He is an alum of Morgan State University. He attended the first cohort of a Policing Inside Out class, and now he's a law enforcement professional in the District of Columbia. So I'll be having him introduce himself as we conclude with the IMs for the current group of students. So to begin, 1 second will be battle, but who would like to follow battle? Anyone who has not done their IM, who would like to follow battle? You can just raise your hand to confirm you'll follow battle with your IM presentation.
I can.
Okay, so after battle will be Sky. And who would like to follow Sky? So first is battle, then is Sky. So battle and Simmons. So Sky Simmons. Who will be after Miss Simmons?
Tanea.
Okay, Tanea. Okay, so we're gonna roll. This is exactly what we're doing. We're gonna move really quickly. So we have battle, Simmons, and then Tanea. Who'll be after Tanea?
I went already, right?
That Summer Raven, you posted yours on that
discussion board.
Yep. And
right.
we actually shared it in class.
Okay.
So Battle, Simmons, and Tanea. Who else have I not heard from? Let's see.
I posted mine. I don't know if you saw.
Okay, you presented it on the link.
Yeah.
I recall yours. We did look at yours.
Okay.
Cunningham, did you present? Cameron?
Yeah, I presented it class.
Okay, I now remember. Okay, great. And I think Mr. Lowe, you presented as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. So we do have everyone covered who's here. So begin with Battle, and as soon as Battle is done, the two remaining persons who are here tonight so far can start to present your IM. You have the floor. If you have to share your screen, you can actually go ahead and share your screen. All right, Mr. Battle.
Okay, how you doing? I don't have to share my screen. Kind of brief. You like even answered that question and got a lot of metaphysical connotations to it.
Okay, Mr. Battle, I'm not sure if anyone else is having difficulty hearing you, and I think this may have been an issue before. It might be your headset, and if there's a short in the link, I'm not sure if that will make a difference, but you got close enough, it might help.
You got me?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit. And now it's no sound. Okay, go ahead.
Now no sound.
Okay, now I hear you. I hear you now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you missed the disclaimer, but pretty much I'm flexible. So I try to avoid a definition, because as soon as I define who I am, then I'm automatically going to define who I'm not, and I never know who I am tomorrow. So I am who you need me to be, and I am somebody else different to everybody I meet. But there you go. Yeah, I'm an older brother and a younger brother. So I am that. I am water, fluid, flexible. That. About making a statement and then not making a statement. So that's it. Thank you.
So are you saying are there three children? Are you the second child? Excellent. This is giving me so much insight. I have a special place in my heart for second children. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Game of Thrones, the second sons. That is
Yeah,
us.
it's a thing. I know
That
about
is
it.
us.
I definitely know about it. Excellent. All right. So next up is the next person. Go ahead. You already know your order.
Hi. Okay, so am I just introducing myself and then?
You're following the instructions you were given about 2 weeks ago. But if you can put your camera on, that would be wonderful, because we really want to get to know who you are. Make sure we put the name to the face properly. All right. Thank you so much.
I'm Sky Simmons. I'm a senior, and I'm the middle child as well. I'm 21, and my birthday just passed in October 12th. That's really it.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, when we do our presentations, we will undoubtedly share who we are based upon what our comfortability is. But remember, when you looked at, because all of us looked at the IMs prior, they were a little comprehensive, gave us some insight that we may not have otherwise gotten. When we have the first day of class, we have a brief introduction, but this IM is like giving more of who you are. So the next person, go right ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. And while our classmate is preparing to present her screen, I'm just going to give a little note. So the IM presentation is a pivotal part of our class session. We have this is built into the structure of the Policing Inside Out class. And this is when we get to know each individual student beyond what we've learned as the semester began initially, right? So we did these IMs 2 weeks ago. You were given instructions on it 3 weeks ago. And tonight we're offering opportunity for you to do your IM if you have not done so. If you have presented already, you're just listening in, taking notes. You'll recall on the reflection from after we did the IMs, we were able to review our classmates' presentations because we were in person, or if we weren't in person, like logged in, because Morgan students had a wellness day. You were able to look at the recording to document what you were thinking regarding your classmates. And then you offered commentary about a person you'd like to learn a little more about. There were like 5 people I asked you to consider to learn a little more about. So what we are doing tonight is the IMs, if you have not done so. And all this will come back again, because when we do the We Are presentations, we will in fact want to connect some of the dots from IM. Okay, so are you ready?
Can you see my screen now?
Not quite. You did click share screen, and you click the bubbles, the bubbles at the bottom, the selection items at the bottom, and then click share.
Because I have a PowerPoint, but I don't know how to share.
Oh, so are you on a Zoom right now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, do you see share screen at the bottom?
Yeah.
Or click that. And then do you see like 2 selections at the bottom of that so far? Well, you should see the actual PowerPoint first. You see the PowerPoint?
Not when I click share screen.
Okay, so no, you know what?
See it on the left, you'll see it on a series of things that you have open on your computer on the left side. So if you click the document you want, it should pop up on the screen. Hello, Mr. English, welcome.
Yeah, I just noticed he popped in. This is from 2021 or 2020. I think it's 2020.
Yeah, good afternoon. How you doing?
You're from 2020, fall 20. Yes, 2020. We never met in person. Oh my gosh. Awesome. Okay, so Tanea, if you're having a problem, you can email it to me and I'll share it for you. And Anthony, you were saying something?
I just asked how have you guys been?
Hanging in there.
Okay, I think I'm gonna email it.
Okay, perfect.
Is the class meeting tonight?
Yes.
You are meeting tonight, and you are going to be seeing some faces that you met in 2020. And I think you'll enjoy tonight's session. All the sessions are enjoyable, but I think you'll enjoy tonight's session. I don't think Mr. Pope met the one panel guest because he wasn't a part of the cohort where he first joined us. So this is exciting to see some of our prior PIO students. And Tanea is emailing me her PowerPoint. And then we have any other students who haven't presented who would like to follow Tanea. I might be pronouncing your name incorrectly, please.
Yeah, it's Tanea.
Tanea. Let's see. Okay, oh, I haven't quite gotten it. It's gonna come up soon though. If you emailed it, it's gonna come to me soon. And let me go back here. Okay, so let me just go back to my screen and see all the faces of the folks who are here.
Justin says that he can do his now.
Okay, Justin, are you ready? And we're Tanea, as soon as yours comes up, I'll share a screen and you can begin.
Just go ahead, Justin. Unless you can send it to me and we can.
Oh, he says he doesn't have a camera right now, but he can present, and it might not. Do you have to share your screen, Justin? Do you have something? Okay, great. All right, go ahead and speak. Thank you.
Okay, give me 1 second. Oh, sorry, I gotta get better. Get in a better area of my house. Come on.
And Justin, are you beginning now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, go ahead. We're ready.
How you guys doing? My name is Justin Steers, and I'm a senior. I play basketball here at Coppin State. And a little bit about myself, I'm from Philadelphia, PA. I'm one of 8 brothers, all brothers, no sisters. I grew up playing all sports, but eventually drifted off into basketball because I had a growth spurt, fortunately, and was told to just, stick to basketball. And that's what I did. I had about 20 plus college offers, and I chose Coppin because of relationships and family members. I like to be close to home, and I'd rather be with my family than, across the country somewhere else. And my experience here has been great. Met a lot of new people. Learned about HBCUs because I never heard of an HBCU, honestly, before I got here. So coming here and learning about it was a good experience. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much. This is a good segue, I believe, to our next person. Now, Tania, it hasn't quite come in yet. I'm going to keep clicking inbox to see it pop in to my email. And it will come in. It's just, because we're anticipating, it's a little delay. That's how that works. Anyone else have not quite presented their I am yet? Wanda? Okay, so Jenna is next. Jenna Moore, and then
okay, Professor. I'm sorry. So I had no clue what the presentation was about. I don't know. I didn't know.
Okay, so take a moment, look at your notes, email announcements, and instructions, and then come back when you are ready.
Okay.
Wow, we have Joycelyn Johnson. We haven't seen you in a while. We're just so happy you joined us tonight. And I think she has been celebrating retirement. So not quite. Do you mind sharing?
No, not yet. Last week was homecoming here at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
One of my students just went down there to celebrate. She's a Southern alum. She was there partying.
Okay. Well, last week was homecoming, and I survived.
Got you. Oh, you turned in your paperwork, but you haven't quite finished yet. Okay, got you.
No, I haven't turned in my paperwork yet. See, the process here, you have to go in to do what they call like a pre-assessment. So everything that I was hoping for was in place, and all I need to do is just sign, and that's it. I don't have to transfer anything. So that's what I did. I went to make sure that everything was in place. And
gotcha.
I'm just waiting on that date to get here.
I hear you. We're so excited you're with us tonight. So just for everyone's sake, I'm going to send out a quick note. I think first off, our one student joined us on another device, Tania, and you may be able to share there, but we'll double check. For everyone else, just as a reminder, what we're doing is the I am completion. So everyone wasn't able to share their I ams yet. So basically I am is just sharing about yourself. Who are you? Like, how do you define yourself? How does the community see you? Tell us some like interesting facts about yourself. That's what we're actually doing. And Tania, do you think your device currently is going to help? Great. And then Ms. Johnson, if you can share I am, we also like to hear from you as well. So first it will be Tania and then Ms. Johnson. And then after that, the student who wanted to take a look at the notes. Okay, you ready, Tania?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great.
Y'all can see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. I am Tania Parrott. What about me? My name is Tania Jasmine Parrott.
And on May 1st, 2001, at 9:13 in the morning, I was born at St. Agnes Hospital. Where am I from? Baltimore, Maryland is where I was born and raised. Siblings, I have 4 siblings in total. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother on my mother's side. On my father's side, I have 2 brothers and one whom died in 2008. I am the second oldest. Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women. For middle and high school, I attended Bless. I believe that attending this all-girls charter school helped me shape me into the young woman I am today. I learned so much and couldn't imagine myself attending any other school. Coppin State University. I started Coppin in the fall of 2019, and I'm now senior, about to graduate spring of 2022. I like how Coppin is small with friendly people. And I do poems. I write poems for fun, not for serious, but just for fun. So it is called I Am the Person I Am. I may not be the most attractive person, but I have full beauty. I might not be your first choice, but I am an excellent choice. I am me, and that's fine because I'm good at being myself. I don't care what you think about me. And that's it.
Thank you so much. That was so moving. Oh yeah, I love the hearts. Thank you so much. That was really good, really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Miss Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all.
You can say stop share. You'll see. Yeah, there you are. Miss Johnson, just a little bit about yourself, please. I know you've been away.
Okay. Okay. My name is Jacqueline Johnson. I am a 24-year veteran law enforcement officer. My 24 years have been served here at Southern University, where I started off as a police officer too, and I worked my way up the ranks. I've held every position in my department except captain, and have not did the position of detective officially, but I have worked as a detective for a little while. I'm married. I have 2 sons, one 33, which today is his birthday, and the other one is 31. And a fun thing about me, a lot of people don't know, I love children's fashion. I love seeing little children dressed up in dress clothes. So I have started preparing myself for what I'm going to do later on. After retirement, I'm going to start myself a children's clothing boutique. And I'm still planning on doing some kind of law enforcement work, but just not in the capacity that I'm in now. Let me think of what else. Oh, I also teach I teach a senior seminar class here in the criminal justice department. And I do a lot. The students here get a lot out of this police department here at Southern. We do a lot of community policing activities. And every spring semester, we have something like a block party, and we call it Kicking It with Cops, where I throw the students a big party because we've been together from the start of the semester, well, start of the school year to the end. And just to, you know, they always hear what they can't do, and you don't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. So that's one of the days I just let them pretty much have their way with playing loud music and staying out longer than they normally would. And we boil crawfish and all kinds of food we have. And the last couple of years, we've had some surprise artists show up, and we give them like a live performance. And it's just a lot of fun. It lasts probably for about maybe 5 or 6 hours. And that's one of the fun things that we do here, but we do a lot of activities with our students here. And I think that's it about me. I do know what I need to say. I'm the first female to hold this position, and I'm the only person to have the position longer than 5 years.
Wow.
In January, I'll have the position 10 years.
Wow. So you're the chief at Southern University, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That was awesome to hear. And I think you have some potential persons who want to check out your boutique. Hope you also have a online store as well as a brick and mortar.
I do. That's what it is. It's online. It's not going to be brick and mortar, but it's online.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we have, I think Jenna Moore is the person who wanted to double check what the notes say.
Yeah, I have an idea as to what the presentation is about now.
Okay.
Okay, well, obviously I don't have a PowerPoint.
And do you have a camera? Would like to place the name with the face. Miss Moore?
Yes, I'm here.
And you come on camera?
Yes, my video is currently on.
Oh, okay, it's fine.
Okay, good. So my name is Jenna Moore. I just turned 21 October 21st. I'm originally from Monrovia, Liberia. I came to the United States when I was 11 years old. I'm currently the only child, but I have an adopted sister. I'm currently also a worship leader at my church in Gaithersburg, where I'm currently living, because I'm in Baltimore for school. So yeah, that's how I that's how I serve my community, and the youth in my church look up to me because I'm the only I guess you can say young adult on the worship team. What else? A fun fact about me, so I didn't know what the sport volleyball was until my sophomore year in high school. So I decided to give it a shot, and I won the award for the most improved player on the team. So that was good. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, we have to say happy birthday to the October birthdays, including Chief Johnson's son, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, October birthdays. And I will say one of my best friends is from Liberia. So this is always a pleasure to hear from folks from Liberia. Excellent. And there are some other folks who have not shared their IMs. Just raise your hand if you have not quite shared it, and then I can bring you in. We have a good 7 minutes to allow you to share, okay, your IMs. And again, this is the IMs that you may not have shared 2 weeks ago when we initially did this. So let me just go back to my gallery so I can check out whose hands are raised. And I see just one hand. Okay, and if you have not shared, you won't get credit for this. Okay, so first will be Sydney and then Taya. And you can go ahead and begin, Sydney, and then Taya. As soon as Sydney is done, you can begin. Thank you. And you're on mute right now, Sydney.
I'm trying to figure out how I can show it. Sorry.
How to share your screen?
Yeah, because I sent it on the Canvas, like, because I made a video, but it's a poem.
Oh, I think you shared. We have it. You shared. I shared it. You posted it on Canvas.
In the video, it didn't show that because I looked at the video, the class video, and you didn't share mine.
I did. I shared yours. Yeah, you actually shared it. And I remember it clearly. It was short and to the point. We actually shared your video.
Oh, okay.
All right, and it's at the latter part of it. So you want to check it out one more time.
Oh, okay.
But if you want, it's really short. So go ahead and share it now. And then
okay, well, I'll read it. I'll just read it off my phone because I have it. Okay. Okay, I'm Sydney. This is a poem I wrote. It is short, but it explains me like perfectly, I think. Watashi wa dere. I am selfless, spirited, and sympathetic. I am wakashi. I am driven, disciplined, and dorky. I am yojo. I am enthusiastic, empowered, and encouraging. I am yashi. Watashi wa dere. Watashi wa sini desu.
Thank you so much. And that is Mandarin, correct?
It's Japanese.
Japanese. I'm totally off. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And the next person, go right ahead.
I also sent mine on Canvas.
Did you send it prior to the class?
Yeah,
So I'm sure I shared it. Did you watch the video of us sharing?
I did not know.
Okay. Was it really short?
It was a 2-minute video.
Yep. I shared your video. I
Okay.
did. All right. So we had Taya has taken care of her business. And that's it for those who have not shared their I ams.
What about Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Johnson is our panel person tonight.
All right, we're good.
So he'll be sharing who he is in a moment. But at this time, I'd like to have Curtis Pope introduce himself. And then after Mr. Pope, we're going to have Mr. English introduce himself. Curtis Pope was a part of our fall 2018, our inaugural Policing Inside Out class. He's now a law enforcement professional in the district. And Mr. English is a alum, if I'm not mistaken, of Coppin State. He was in our fully virtual class fall 2020. And then after those two share a brief moment about themselves, we're going to have our panel folks come in and talk about the work that they're doing. I'll introduce them just after Mr. English. So Mr. Pope, and definitely come on camera with that cute baby. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Now you're here. What's it called? How y'all doing? My name is Curtis Pope. This is my son, the fourth. So he's Curtis Pope, the fourth. I went to Morgan State, graduated in 2019. I believe the class that I was in was 2018, fall 2018.
Yep.
Yeah, first class. I had wanted to be a police officer before I even got into the class, and it was a very eye-opening experience for me. So now I'm in year 3 at the police department in DC. I'm uptown, so north of Howard, and I enjoy what I do. It's fun, and I get to help as much as possible, and I get to do what I've been wanting to do for a long period of time. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pope. I'm so excited that you're joining us, and he's been joining us over the years, so we're just so thankful. Thank you so much. And Mr. English.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony English. I'm a May 2021 Coppin graduate. I was in the Policing Inside and Out class in fall 2020. Right now, I'm seeking employment with the police department. So everyone pray for me, please. And right now, I'm just I took a test for law school, but I didn't pass. So I'm hoping to get back into that one day. And like I said, I'm just waiting on for that call from the police department as a forensic investigator. And that's it. Thank you.
So what we are experiencing is 2 different cohorts of 2 students, one from Morgan, one from Coppin, one is a law enforcement professional now, one will be joining at the forensics team. And because we have like a 1 minute, Mr. English, can you share with us a little bit, just a teeny bit of your I am? And I'm remembering what you shared with your I am that it just really, you talked about your legacy.
I don't remember exactly.
Your mother.
Oh, well, I don't remember my exact words, but my mother was a Baltimore City Sheriff. She ran for Baltimore City Sheriff and maybe 2012, 13. She ran for Baltimore City Sheriff, and she also ran for the clerk of the court back in the 90s. Her name is Deborah Clarity. She went through a lot at the sheriff's department on her way out. but she was a lieutenant there and she did very well. She worked there for at least about 30 years or so. So if you get a chance, look any information up on Facebook. You can ask anything or anything like that. And feel free to ask me anything. I'm also on Facebook. Or if anyone needs to reach out to me, you can send a message. I'll give you my email or phone number, everything like that.
All right, and I think I'm going to take the liberty of adding the reason Dr. Pratt-Harris and I made the facial expressions we did, we're in awe, is because Mr. English was one of, we could probably liken Mr. English to our battle number one this year. Very much, you know, police, you know, they, despite having the law enforcement background in his family, we could probably say he was a bit anti the police. He saw them as profiling him. He had a lot of angst about the police. So to hear him say that he is now considering employment with BPD warms my heart. And it surprised me as well. And I think that's why Dr. Pratt-Harris looked the way she did. So thank you, Mr. English. Happy to see you. And
yes,
let us know when you get that phone call, sir.
Yes, and I think the uniqueness of the moment is about these legacies. So we see Curtis Perk the fourth, and then, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. This was organic. It's all meant to be. So thank you all so much. One of our classmates posted something about attempting to raise their hand. If you want to unmute yourself, I don't know if you have a quick question or comment.
No, I was saying I wasn't sure how to raise my hand on here, but I didn't get to present my presentation.
Okay, great. So we have one person, Ms. Sanders, who will share after we have our panels tonight, because our panel guests are actually in the room. They're on Zoom. They have been logging in while you have all been doing your panel, your IM presentations. And so what I will do briefly is to introduce the folks who have joined us for the panels, and I'm just going to give a very brief introduction for each person. So the first is Letrice Gant. You all met her about 4 weeks ago. She's from what's currently known as the Baltimore ceasefire. We have Dante Johnson, also situated in Baltimore. He's a safe streets violence interrupter. And we also have, I'm going to make certain that I have part of the name, okay, the name correct, Milton Tomlinson, who is a violence interrupter. He's currently situated, he's actually there now, I'm assuming, in Kingston, Jamaica. And Mr. Tomlinson may have brought additional folks. If you want to introduce them when you began, please feel free to introduce your guests. And then Miss Gant and Mr. Johnson, if you brought additional folks, definitely introduce yourself. And so what we're going to do at this time is just to remind everyone who's here that our class is designed based upon, as you already know, the Policing Inside Out model. And our goal with our class is to come together, law enforcement community and our students at the two universities. All of us are students, including Dr. Trader and myself, but we come together to talk about quite a bit of topics, but ultimately we want to address community concerns. One of the concerns that we have as a community is about violence in our communities. Baltimore City, as one example that we hone in on because we are situated in the city of Baltimore, and we look at these things internationally. Kingston, Jamaica is part of our, our yearning for offering as much as we can regarding addressing violence in Kingston. Both Dr. Trader and I are connected to Kingston. She is from Jamaica, and I am a descendant, first generation American. My mom is Jamaican, and we have 2 to 3 people who join us each week from Kingston. So we're going to be able to talk about some of those things with the folks who are in the room. So the first person, I hope this person is okay to share to begin, is Ms. Gant. One of the things she talked about the last time she joined us is about the Baltimore ceasefire and the changing goal in terms of rebranding the ceasefire movement. So that's something I definitely would like the students to connect with, especially where we're moving into ceasefire weekend after next. So thank you, Ms. Gant.
Hi, everybody. My name is Letrice Gant. I am currently the Deputy Director with the Baltimore Community Mediation Center, and I am a co-organizer for the now known as Baltimore Ceasefire 365 movement. I've been Deputy Director at the Mediation Center for a little over a year, and I've been a co-organizer with the Baltimore Ceasefire 365 movement since its inception in May 2017. I will be wearing both hats today. So I'll talk a little bit about ceasefire and a little bit about the Mediation Center because they actually are very interconnected. The Baltimore Ceasefire 365 movement was born in May 2017 when the community came together to do a couple of things. One of those things was to think about how individual people living in Baltimore City could get involved in changing both the narrative, the energy, and the vibration of Baltimore City. There is a misconception in Western society that we have to rely on top-down organizations like the police, like the government to aid us. And that's been the culture, American culture specifically, for a very, very long time. But we know that change does not always happen top down. It mostly happens on the ground with individual community members when they come together as a collective to decide that they want something different for themselves and for one another. So the ceasefire movement was born when Erica Bridgeford and Kevin Beasley decided that they wanted to do something, and they pulled in 4 more co-organizers, and we rallied the city to get everybody to think differently about how we want to look at murder. Murder is a very potent and powerful energy, and it's crippling in the sense that people feel like they can't do anything about it. They feel like it's a thing that just happens to us, and it's something that we have to accept. And we said no. And so August 2017, we called the very first ceasefire weekend where we asked for 72 hours with no murder and no violence. Because at the time that we called a ceasefire, we were losing community members on average once every 19 hours. The sister component to the ceasefire is the Baltimore Peace Challenge. There is a very small percentage of people in Baltimore City who commit acts of violence with guns specifically. The majority of the people who live in Baltimore City are peaceful. And in amplifying that peace, we ask for people in the community to plan what we call life-affirming events. So during ceasefire weekends, we had a vision of Baltimore where people in the city were vibrating higher. There was a collective consciousness around raising the vibration and raising the energy in the city and really celebrating life. And what would it look like in Baltimore City if most of the people in the city, who are normally peaceful anyway, decided that they wanted to celebrate life that weekend? After the ceasefire weekend, we decided to call quarterly ceasefires. And so ceasefire weekends happen every August, November, February, and May. So we have a ceasefire weekend coming up the very first weekend in November. We ask people to do the same thing, nobody kill anybody, and to plan life-affirming events. In the beginning of the ceasefire, our energies were focused specifically on the epidemic of murder. Stopping murder, doing what we can to reduce violence in the community, while at the same time trying to amplify life. In the 5 years since the beginning of the ceasefire, we, being the leadership team of the ceasefire, have grown spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And part of that spiritual growth was us realizing that we have, and when I say we, I mean all of us, have both ability and capacity to amplify what we want in life. that is part of our creative energy. And so we made a decision to, instead of focusing on the negative and focusing on murder, while still honoring lives if we lose somebody, but to really amplify peace. Because the reality of our city is that there's way more peace in Baltimore than there is violence. And so it's part of our human nature because we're wired to focus on the negative. But what happens in our collective consciousness and in our culture if we shift that focus to the positive and amplify that? And so the movement is undergoing a name change. We don't know what the name is going to be. The community decided in May 2017 what the name of the movement would be. And so November 2022, they're going to decide again what the name of the movement should be, and with a focus really on the amplification of peace and what's positive in Baltimore. It's easy to talk about what you don't want. It's easy to focus on what you don't want, and we don't want to do that anymore. We want to specifically focus on what we want to see more of in Baltimore City, and that's peace. A lot of people who know about the ceasefire, either through participating in the movement, reading about it, knowing us personally, know that it's a movement that is rooted in integrity, it's rooted in community, it's rooted in self-determination, and all of those different values. Those values come directly from the Baltimore Community Mediation Center. Baltimore Community Mediation was created in 1995 by Dr. Lori Sharkudian. And the purpose of the Mediation Center is to provide a safe space for people to resolve conflict, for people to have hard conversations, for people to make plans around important things. Mediation is not something that, and the Mediation Center specifically, is not something that a lot of people know about in Baltimore. Unfortunately, it's not a resource that people understand that they have readily available to them, and it's free. So if you are in the middle of a conflict, if you're on the other side of a conflict, or if you are in the beginning stages and you feel a conflict brewing, you can reach out to the Mediation Center to schedule free 2-hour mediation sessions. These sessions are voluntary, they're confidential by law. So everything that gets said in the mediation is locked in that mediation session. Nobody can talk about what happens inside of that session. And our volunteer mediators are trained to be non-judgmental and neutral. Because we believe in self-determination, we don't believe that we have the answers to other people's conflicts. We believe that the people who are involved in the conflict have both the ability to navigate the conflict with our assistance, but also resolve the conflict with our assistance. And so the center has been around for over 30 years, and we provide conflict management training to people in Baltimore City. Mediation sessions, again, are free, and we can mediate pretty much anything as long as the parties that are involved feel like they can show up to the table without some kind of threat to their autonomy. And what that means is, if I mediate with my boss, do I believe I'm going to get fired for doing so? If so, that's not a good candidate for mediation, because we want people to show up to the table to be able to express themselves freely. We don't tone police, we don't language police. We want people to show up authentically in their conflict so that they can get to the other side of their conflict. We're in Baltimore City Public Schools. We offer all kinds of mediation services all across the city. We have over 152 partnerships with organizations around Baltimore City. We are constantly building up our roster of partnerships, because the thing that we understand is that conflict is universal. People think that conflict is unnatural, and it's not. Like, conflict is a natural part of being a human being. The mismanagement of conflict is where we go wrong. So we have a safe space for people to come, again, get a free service. We go into the prisons and we do what we call re-entry mediation in Baltimore City prisons. And that is a very powerful program, because every time a person in prison has a mediation session, the research shows that their chances of going back to prison get chipped away each time. So if a person has 10 mediation sessions while they're in prison, their chances of going back to prison are 0. And that's not something that we made up. That's what our research shows. We are an older organization, and I am committed as the deputy director of the Mediation Center to making mediation be, when people hear the word conflict, that they automatically think about us. The same way that when you hear, when people are arguing, like their default is to call 911. We want people, when they think about conflict, to automatically think about us. And so our goal is to become a household name and to be a household resource in the city, because again, conflict is inevitable. If you're being your authentic self, you're going to eventually end up in some kind of conflict. But conflict doesn't always have to equal violence. And it doesn't always have to equal, it especially doesn't have to equal murder. We're located in the heart of Waverly at 3333 Greenmount Avenue. I'll put our contact information, our website, and all of that stuff in the chat so that you all can have it. And I'll conclude my presentation by saying, if anybody has any questions for me, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Johnson is with Safe Streets Baltimore, and it's currently housed in the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. Mr. Hall is a gentleman at Morgan State who connected myself and Mr. Johnson a little over, maybe less than a year ago. So I just want to welcome you both. If Mr. Hall wants to speak, that's fine. If not, I know he's here. But Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me, Dr. Pratt-Harris, and it was great hearing you speak, Ms. Gant. Right, well, I'm actually now working for City Hall, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, as a community outreach liaison, directly responsible for the technical assistance of the Safe Streets programs across the city. When we first met Dr. Pratt-Harris, I was the site director for the Safe Streets program located in the Bel Air Edison community. And I just want to talk a little bit about Safe Streets and its core mission to reduce shootings and homicides in key neighborhoods across the city of Baltimore. Safe Streets, we utilize a public health approach to dealing with violence. We believe that violence is a disease just like any other disease, and that it spreads from one person to the next, and that if we utilize our programming and our model properly, that we can mediate, just like Ms. Gant, we can get in between conflict and stop it from spreading from one person to another. What we do is we use what we call credible messages, and they go by violence interrupters. They work in the inner city communities, in what we call hot spots, where a lot of crime is normally happening, like a lot of drug dealing, a lot of it's just these communities, they've been chosen to host a Safe Streets because they was at the 25 highest percentile of violent crime in the city. So my experience with Safe Streets in the Bel Air Edison community, I just want to talk about our impact while I was there, and the impact that we continue to see there and the other 9 communities across the city. I worked as a site director. We was a staff of 7. It was myself. We had a program manager who was responsible for having events, getting the community stakeholders, businesses, community partners, residents, and everybody to buy into the mission of Safe Streets, that shootings and homicides don't have to happen, that we can mediate the conflict before the guns come out, and you can utilize our credible messengers in the street in real time to stop the conflict from happening. Why are these guys credible? Because they from the same places, and they were some of the same type of lifestyles that we see are high-risk individuals, community residents, living the same type of lifestyle that they live in now. They just changed their life and decided to try to give back to their communities. So we trained in a model called Cure Violence. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that, but it is a model developed out of Chicago by Dr. Gary Schlucken. And it's a three-pronged approach. We detect, we mediate, we detect potentially violent situations, we mediate conflicts, and follow up on any ongoing matters that may come through those mediations, and we change community norms by offering resources and throwing community events and just driving the community to a way that we believe that they would buy into, that the shootings or killings definitely don't have to happen. During my time working with the Bel Air Edison community, we were able to go into a community that had seen 10 homicides the prior year we were there. The prior 2 years, there was like 10 in 2018. There was another 7 in 2019. And then from 2020, December of 2020 through December of 2021, through constant community engagement, engaging the highest risk, building partnerships with the schools, the businesses, our community stakeholders, our churches, our community associations, neighborhood associations, we were able to go over 365 days without one shooting homicide. So from, like I said, from constant engagement with our community and believing that the program works, we was able to get our high risk, the people that was a part of the problem, so to speak, they believed that we were working for the betterment of the community. And we literally, the guys that, girls, guys, people that we say are high risk, they helped us with the countdown. They were part of the celebration and that we would go outside every day. They're like, man, how many more days before we get there? And these are the guys that we had to work closely with to help mediate and stay calm, that they wouldn't shoot or fight or whatever the case may be, but they helped us get there. And it wasn't just all of our work, it was our engagement with our community and the buy-in that we got. We were responsible for throwing at least one community event every month, which might look like a cookout, an event, outreach, various types of things just to continue to promote our message of stop shooting, start living. But we also, my team, they had to be trained, they had to be motivated. We had to make sure that they had self-care and trauma-informed care that they needed to continue to do the work. They needed to be supported. Everybody, we not at all, none of us were educated, like at a degree, like college educated. We worked together to build each other, to put this movement down in our communities, and we seen great success through that. We funded through the mayor's office, and that money was at the time we would go through a community-based organization. The one I worked for was the Living Classrooms Foundation, which is a great organization, but at the same time, they're a white organization. They didn't understand all the challenges of our people. And when it came to accessing the resources that were available, we had to really fight, and not fight, but we had to go back and forth to let them see where the need was and why what we were saying was what the community needed, and get them to, we really had to get to see the community-based organization to buy in. You dig what I'm saying? So it wasn't just like, you know, we show up and we could do all of this stuff to get the people to buy into the program. But, you know, it was our ups and downs, but at some point, you know, we was able to crack that mold, and they seen the progress that we were making when we started going. You know, like I said, you go 1 year that we open and you see 9 murders happening in a small community like Bel Air, Edison, and then the goals start going, you know, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and you know, they started really believing in what we were doing. You know, 1 year we took 100 high risk people to Six Flags. We was able to get them all out of the community for 1 day. You know, we give bikes to their children, we give sneakers to their children, coat drives, food drives, community safety committee meetings. We would invite the high risk so their voice could be heard amongst the community associations and the Congress people and the elected officials, you know. So we made a place where everybody felt like they were heard for our community, no matter, you know, what the person's background may have looked like. And we just consistently showed up with resources too. So once we got to a certain point where we started to see the change, we started to feel the change, like the sister talked about, you know, those vibrations, we could start feeling peace in the community. We started to bring the resources. We started bringing the jobs, the workforce development, you know, helping with resumes. You know, during the pandemic, we helped a lot of people. You know, at first, early on in the pandemic, nobody knew if you didn't have an ID or if you had child support, you couldn't get the COVID relief money. Whatever that money was, you couldn't get it. And people didn't know that they could get it. And once we found out that everybody could get it, I mean, we went out in the community, we said, man, you can get your, what's the name of that money? Can somebody remind me of what that was called?
COVID money, so I can tell
yeah,
you.
COVID money. So anyway, so the people weren't informed. And
it's the stimulus package.
The stimulus money, exactly. So the stimulus money, you know, they didn't realize that they were eligible. And we opened up a workshop in our location where they could come in, apply for the stimulus money. I mean, you know, and our resources was what they were. You know, they go over to the Family Dollar, buy a $5, a $10 debit card if they didn't have a bank account, you know, to process their stimulus payment. They started getting that. They really was believing in what we were doing, and we would show up. You know, if there's something going on, they would report to us. They would say, hey, man, it's going on, you know, such and such and such and such. It could be a problem. If you talk to them, you know, we willing to let it go. You know, we showing up at big dice games where, you know, tens of thousands of dollars was involved. You know, and it just could get crazy out there. And like I say, our guys, they work from 4 p.m. till midnight every day. You know, during the winter months, it's pitch black outside, it's freezing cold. You know, they working in some of the most challenged community to challenge in a challenged situation, you know. So it wasn't easy. You know, some days I would go, normally I would work from like 9 to 5, you know, just to make sure the business of what we were doing was intact. But then I would, you know, spend some time with my team on the street. And, you know, and I'm from the street, you know, and I would go out there and like, again, during the pandemic, everybody was running around with masks on, you know, and that whole thing was pretty, you know, for me, it was pretty scary one night, you know, and, you know, we standing on the corner, guys jumping out cars with masks on, but my team, you know, they were pretty, you know, relentless to keep showing up, because whatever was happening, we were showing up and wasn't no murders happening. And that in itself was driving us day by day by day. And I can tell you, the program really works. Now I work for the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety Engagement with Director Dante Jackson, who once led the Baltimore Community Mediation Center that Ms. Gant is at now. She's great to work for. Our program, you know, MONSE is building out a very ecosystem consisting of, you know, community violence intervention, school-based violence intervention, life coaches, hospital-based responder programs, where our hospital responders, they meet gunshot victims at their bedside, at that vulnerable moment when they've been shot. You know, we have responders that work in the hospital and they work with their families and they work with the individuals at that time when it, you know, it's crucial. You know, I got shot. I may not know why I got shot. And now, you know, I got this person here willing to offer me some help to guide me through the tangled web of, you know, the medical field of the hospital, you know, the resources of rehabilitation when you get out, you know, accessing resources, whether monetary or, you know, things for your family. It's just a great thing that's happening under our mayor. I look forward to continue, you know, being here in Baltimore and getting our murder rate down. You know, we do see, and I don't know if y'all watch, you know, the news or whatever the case may be, but I'll try to be careful about what I watch, but we do get a lot of negative reporting by like Fox 45, you know, and some of our work is delicate. You know, we can't be going around, running around talking about, oh, we mediated conflict between Joe and Mo, you know, because like, who gonna trust us? Like, it's like, oh, I mediated conflict with you, and then we go talk to the police. And, you know, the police has its place, and we support, you know, public safety. We all in the same field. We all trying to make our community safe. But at the end of the day, this is a unique operation because of the credibility of our messages that they able to get in where nobody else can get in. The cops can't get in. The professors can't get in. It's because of their stature in the streets that they able to get out, understand what's going on, and get to the bottom of it and stop the next shooting from possibly happening. Now, you know, shootings do happen. You know, we went without a shooting homicide, but we did have 5 shootings in our community. And that's and you know, a shooting is a homicide is a shooting homicide is kind of relative because the bullet could have went any way and the person could have died. You know, I could get shot in my foot and die, and you get shot in your back and live, you know. So, you know, we don't take that for granted, but we do champion the Bel Air Edison community and all the other communities that really support safe streets because they, you know, on the ground, they understand and they realize how positive it is and how children, not just children, but the children, you know, we mentor the children. We even mentor the grown folks. You know, a lot of people, they just don't, they haven't grown up fully. You know, they don't understand, you know, a lot of people, they use these a lot of violence that we do see, it's emotional things. This is based off of stuff that we may not react to violently, but because of some of the underlying conditions, it's like when you take that last humanity from a person, that's that respect, human respect from a person, they act out. And if we can get each other, we get our brothers and sisters to respect each other and just show them like how this can play out without nobody getting hurt. And if we can all live together, you know, peacefully, then we getting somewhere. And that's pretty much, I hope that's informational enough for y'all, but I'll answer any questions as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. I'm going to bring in Mr. Tomlinson now from Jamaica. I'm always worried about the connection. And I know he'll be sharing some things that complement what both of you all said. I think his energy is electric. So get ready, Mr. Tomlinson. Are you ready?
Let me try and log on to my phone because I realized that my picture is lean on the laptop. I don't know why. So I'm trying to log on my phone as well. So
no problem, but you can talk if you can do both. Go ahead and start. You know, it's just
okay. All right, let me do just that then. Yeah, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, man. I am happy. I'm very happy, you know, being here, and at the same time, because of my passion for what we do here in Jamaica, you know, this type of work, you know, I'm feeling a little bit emotional too when I listen to, you know, both speakers just now, you know. In Jamaica, we don't really grasp this thing properly. And right now we are having great challenges in Jamaica as it relates to homicides because we tend to politicize everything that we do here, most things that we do here, and that in itself creates an issue, you know. coming out of a meeting today where they had mentioned they want to change not using the name violence interrupters, you know, and call them peace ambassadors. And I'm saying like, that's crazy because interruption is what they do. You know, it is what it is, you know what I mean? So it's just ridiculous. But before I go any further, let me introduce Mr. Patrick Williams and Miss Camille Jackson Bailey, members of my team here in Jamaica. So Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Patrick? Yeah, man.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. Patrick Williams. I was the violence interruption supervisor in Spanish Town from 2015 to 2020. Just like what Milton was saying, the violent interrupters now, we came up with a three-prong approach in terms we say we detect, interrupt, and resolve the conflict. Now in Jamaica, it's a little cultural balance where you have to know how to deal with conflicts. So in the community, the violent interrupters are known in the community. They don't have any bias, well respected. So in terms of a conflict comes up, they could speak to both sides. Now, within the dynamic of Jamaica, you can have one community that have different, I would say, so for understanding, sections or areas, or you would say down the block or up the block. So if two persons get into a conflict, depending again, cultural in Jamaica, who the persons are. But just for say, two persons get in a conflict, the interrupter detect that problem, whatever it is, by word of mouth, by even seeing it, interrupting by talking to both sides if they can, and then try to resolve it either through mediation or whatever. Now, sometimes we have a situation where shot is fired and somebody gets shot. Now in Jamaica, we can't just go and mediate. We have a thing we have to say, we have to wait and see, because the situation will be so tense, and we have a reprisal culture in Jamaica. So the interrupter actually have to just kind of wait and see what happens, what is the response to that. They actually target high-risk youth, at-risk youth. For the at-risk youth, we try to get them back to school, get them employment or some type of skill training. Each interrupter will have about roughly 20 to 25, sometime up to 30 participants. They actually know the participants, they know them from, most of them from they were born, living in the community, knowing their parents or their family. So that is what we do. And then sometimes we carry them on what we call residential retreats, where we take them out of the community and take them out in the we call the country. Peaceful, nice, have them for 3 days, 3 nights, if I'm correct. So, you know, we have workshops, conflict resolution, entrepreneurial workshops, just to give them a sense of what they can be in a society in terms of being positive. And that's pretty much what we do. It's a very, I would say, dangerous work for the interrupters. Because also in Jamaica, and I think Mr. the speaker before, is very sensitive in terms of what is said amongst the persons that you're mediating, and then also sometimes the police might know. And then you have to create that balance, because the trust has to be there, where you cannot say certain things to certain people and it has to remain confidential. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what it is, and I hope that was useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson. Camille.
Hi everyone, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, so it's so good to be on this platform, absorbing this information and just seeing hearing how different persons deal with the conflict in their own country. For us, one of the approach that we take definitely is our social work approach to violence, case management, very important. the psychosocial approach, we call it, because you find that when persons have gone through situations in their community where there are acts of violence and family members are hurting, communities are hurting, cultures on the ground, social workers go in, mobilize a team to go in and provide counseling. Interestingly, in one of our communities, we were not able to do the work that needed to be done, psychosocial work. And I think maybe for a week and a half, we camped out in a banking, what we call a river gully bank, that's what we call it, a gully bank or a sidewalk, you probably call it in your side of the world. And we stayed there for just a week and a half, talking to the children first, winning the community's trust. So there's a number of strategies that we have to employ in order to get persons to open up to us, to trust us, so that we can help them. So persons have gone on to getting further counseling, long-term counseling for the children, the women. I have a background in gender and development. So one of the things that I did as well in the communities was started women empowerment groups. Now I realized that women are sometimes forgotten in the conflict, but they also play a role and they're overlooked. And so one of the things that I did, I started about 3 empowerment groups in 3 different communities where you would just expose the women to different things, skills training, as Patrick was saying before, educational opportunities, employment opportunities, and so on. All are parts of the psychosocial development, getting them their government documents, identification, birth certificates for them and their children if they didn't have any. Those different documentations, that because I find that when communities like these that we work in, there is also the social aspect to it. So it's not just interrupting the violence, which is very, very important, because for us to go in and do the underground work, that has to take place. So it's a simultaneous kind of working in tandem with the interrupters as a part of the social work, as what I would do in these communities.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. It's very rich sharing. So I must put out front that we were trained by Chicago Ceasefire, now Cure Violence. I have visited Chicago. You know, I spent some time there. We do what you call best practices. I mean, we modify the whole violence interruption thing. We put our spin on it. You know, they came to Jamaica. You know, we all had a sit down and discuss and look at things. And I mean, we both learned from each other. The main thing that we learned from Cure Violence was the data collection, because we weren't doing any of that, you know? And that is important to move any program forward, getting data so as to understand how to treat with whatever it is that you're dealing with. Like Mr. Williams just said, we identify, we detect, and we treat. And at times we also, a part of the treatment, it can be managing the conflict, because it's not every conflict would be able to stop on the front end, you know, when interrupt. You will have to treat with that over time, you know. So while treating, you're managing the process so as to have that conflict resolve over time, you know. Most important for us is the activities that we do. So, I mean, we do a little of the getting the birth certificates and all of those things. So we call them health/information fairs, what we do. So we may have a dentist, a doctor. We give free medical on a particular day. We assist them with getting documents, right? We also have what we call now our residential retreats. And our residential retreats, Mr. Williams spoke a little to it. We would take probably 40, 50 of them, depending on the size of the community and what we plan to achieve, you know, the type of treatment that we're giving. So we would have different types of workshops. We'd expose them to a number of workshops, you know. So sexual reproductive health, you know, substance abuse, entrepreneurship, you know. We also have a session that we call, 2 sessions, important sessions, one that we call out of the box, you know. So what we have is an exchange of someone of their kind, you know, who make the transition in life to stop being in the gangs and want to be a productive citizen, to talk with them, you know, and share with them his or her life story, you know, so as to motivate them and letting them know that they can do it too. We also have building the relationships with the police, right? Slash armed forces. So what we have at times, we will have a senior police officer who comes in and talk to the guys, or a senior military personnel from the rank of colonel or superintendent and deputy and acting commissioners are our highest people in the force here. And the colonels and stuff, those are the majors, highest people in the army here as well. So we would have those persons come in and talk with these guys, you know, as a part of building that relationship, having them understanding, you know, and by doing so, I will go back to Dante, to Mr. Johnson saying, it is a very sensitive work and you have to think out of the box in order to get things done. Because when we have the police and the soldier come and talk to these guys, what we're essentially doing, you know, is moving them into a different path and building that relationship. So what we do, so let's, for example, we are taking some guys from an area in Baltimore to a residential retreat for the behavior modification camp. We would then take a police officer, a decorated officer, you know, from that area to come and talk with them. By doing so, that there's a relationship building, there's some information sharing, you know, exchanging of numbers and things. So right away, they would have somebody to call, you know, whenever they get back home and there's an issue or whatever, they can talk, you know. That police officer know that he can call Dante, you know, because he met Dante and Dante would say so and so on, you know, those type of exchange. And it is very important, you know. We also have what we call community safety groups. What are community safety groups? These are young people that we bring together, you know, for exposure. So what we do, we bring them together to work with one another in building out that piece, that process in the community. Because when we leave a community, that is what we leave in the community. We empower community before we leave, you know. So when you work and you interrupt the violence and you get these guys, you know, we want to leave a legacy, and the legacy would have been some trained person who are able, excuse me, to deal with conflict. We also, you would have those youths who would share, we would have them share information with each other, different communities. Some of those same individuals we would take on the residential retreats. You know, we have outreach officers, what we do job placement with them. You know, so it is a broad program that we do as it relates to our violence interrupters. Now, what is our challenges? The resources. So we would get some short-term funding. So you get funding from like an IDP, you know, a DFID, a British Aid, you know, a Canadian, a CEDA, one of those, any of those entity, we would get some funding from for specific targeted interventions. So even though we have so much programs, it is not seamless, you know, because of the funding. And if it is that we can have some structured, seamless programs, you know, running, we would have things much better. However, now, this is the issue that we're having. Presently, there's no program operating in Jamaica, not one. Not one, because the government of the day does not believe in the violence interruption program at all. So that program, the program was officially stopped supported by the government in I think 2020, in March 2020. Yes, the program start getting support from the government. So it is now up in the air. We're 1 and 2 agencies, we get a little funding to do something here and to do something there. But once you do not have sustenance, to sustain these programs and to take these youth to the next level, it is just frustration. And what really happens, it sink them further underground. Because when you get some youth to start trusting start trusting a process, and suddenly the process move from under their foot, their feet, it's just ridiculous, that unholding experience. Because some of them, they just need some attention. We treat with the entire community when we're working. So we deal with victim and perpetrator alike. We don't deal with just victims alone. We deal with both, because oftentimes it is a situation why the person become a perpetrator, So we will have to, we treat with everyone. We treat with the community, because guess what happened? There's a revenge culture in Jamaica. So whenever something happens, we call for blood, people call for blood. So if it is a case where you have an entity of people like us who would go in to these communities and treat with the entire community to say, hey, we can resolve this in another way, put forward different things, have different types of workshops, just to soothe people's feelings, so as to have them thinking straight, take their minds off the whole revenge and stuff like that, So those are just some of the way and strategies that we use. It is very important, the relationships with the police, building a relationship with the community and the police. You have to be careful and very targeted in how you do that, because the simplest thing in Jamaica, you're labeled as an informer. Yeah, so there's an informer culture. We know of a this culture, and the crime rate, it is scary. It is very frightening what is happening right now in Jamaica. Extremely frightening, without a structured program to interrupt what is happening, boots on the ground working in these hotspot communities, we are wobbling. We are definitely going down a slope slowly, but I'm just hoping and praying that some powers may touch whoever to make a turn, to have us gone back on the right track to make Jamaica the place that we boast, about. It is really rough right now, Natasha, extremely. Yeah.
I can just add before you wrap up the whole thing of using sports as a very important tool.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Very important strategy, because in Jamaica, sports is really big, especially football, as we all know. It's big, so it's something that we use as well. Netball for the ladies, volleyball, and different sporting activities that really get communities together. So that's very important. And we also use the Fight for Peace model, because we were trained in that model in Brazil.
Right.
We use that model as part of our work as well. So
combative sports, so the boxing, the capoeira, and those things, we use those things presently. Just this morning, we were discussing that the World Cup is coming up on us, so we need to organize and have big screen in certain communities, because sports brings people together, and have big screen in certain communities as a part of our intervention strategy, and to reason with these guys and bring them together. Now, we will have to provide some refreshment and stuff like that, and because what we realize in Jamaica, whenever there are sporting activities, there is a lull in the crime rate, a big lull. Whenever we have heavy, you'd call, not just heavy, but targeted sporting activities in these hotspot communities, we go into the at the end of the year, we go into the new year with a better a better crime rate, you know, for the first month or so. But once we take our foot off that gas, you know, the same it just take a while for these same communities to come back. And like I said, the resources and no structured planning, no proper coordination is some of our downfall, because we have community centers, we train violence interrupters. And let me not say violence interrupters, because they are trained, we train violence interrupters for targeted project in specific communities. But overall, we have restorative justice people trained, we have mediators trained, we have justice of the peace, right? And we have community centers, but there's no structured program in our community centers or in our communities, for that matter, where persons with conflict can go and seek mediation. And the first speaker spoke about it. I was here taking notes because I put my hand up, then I took it down because I wanted to ask who fund that, because she said the mediation free, and there are many different sites that people can go to access mediation service. That is gold. We don't have that in Jamaica. You understand? So those are some of the things that we could deem as our downfall here in Jamaica. Yeah.
Milton, before you wrap up, I just want to put this out. One of the things that I observe amongst the participants in the violent interruption program is lack of fathers. And I believe that plays a big void in the youths, the participants, and how they might go down the wrong path. So I was just putting that out for the persons in the Baltimore, wherever, if that is also something that they see. Thanks.
All right, yeah, man, because there's that culture in Jamaica. It is getting better now. It is getting better now, way better than what it used to be, you know. Single mothers, you know, for whatever reason. But now there are more fathers that stepping up to the plate now and playing their part in the kid's life, you know. So lack of father figure, you know, like Patrick said, is one of our major problems, you know. But boy, I talk about 6 things that I say is one of our major problems. So we really have problems here, you know. Yeah, but that's my contribution for now, Natasha.
Thank you so much. I know Dr. Trader would echo or at least lead with these words. This was value added to our policing inside out class with the 3 groups shared. It was enlightening. Ms. Gant reinforced some things we've addressed, and now, if nothing else, our class is getting that energy to prepare for ceasefire weekend in November. Mr. Johnson had to step away, but we know about the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And now we're bringing it on in where we talk about the work that's happening on the ground in Jamaica, in Kingston, Jamaica specifically. So we just want to thank you for sharing tonight. I will tell you in a few moments, we're going to have some more persons joining us to discuss some of the things we've talked about regarding what we as a class, community, law enforcement, students, and again, we're all together learning, are going to be doing to address violence, some of our community concerns, and police community engagement. And our guests, we're hoping, who are here, you know, for the panel, if you'd like to stay on, please do stay on. Right now, though, please do, if the class, anyone has a question, please ask. We have a few moments between now and when the next group of persons are joining us. But believe me, when the next group joins us, we're going to have even more questions and more conversation I think will benefit the entire room. So any particular question from the class, please ask it now. We have a few moments.
So I just want to hear from Letrice, you know, as to how they get funding for these wonderful programs, you know, in Baltimore.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We have a very unique model. So all of our mediators are volunteers. They're volunteers with the Community Mediation Center, and they receive a free 40-hour mediation session. And this isn't telling the full story, but it's the way that our model works. The way that they pay for the session is by volunteering their hours. So they have to demonstrate a commitment to mediation up front. And by doing that, I mean they have to complete a certain number of volunteer hours. So just say, for example, they want to become a mediator, and in order for them to do that, they have to complete 50 volunteer hours. And those hours, like, you don't have to do them all at once. They do them at their leisure and however it makes sense for them in their schedule. Once they've completed their volunteer hours and demonstrated a commitment to the movement, they get invited to this 50-hour mediation training that's offered a few times throughout the year. And the way that they pay for that training is by volunteering as mediators. So it's like a cycle. So you show that you are committed to the process up front by volunteering your time. We give you a free training, and then you show that you are committed to the process after the fact by paying for that training through mediating cases. We do receive government funding for our program. We have private philanthropic donations and community donations. And so, and one of our funding streams is that we offer conflict management training. So it's a full and robust way to get people to give back to their community in real time, by getting a free training and then using that training to mediate conflicts in the city.
Wow.
I hope that makes sense.
Thank you so much. And I'm confident that this is not the last time the two entities will be connecting. This was a divine moment. Sergeant Glanville has her hand raised and she has a question. Thank you.
Yes, I don't know if you all can see me. I apologize. I'm at work. So first I wanted to say thank you for this. You've given so much information and I love it. So Ms. Gant, first, I was so excited when I heard that you were going to be on, well, everyone, but I actually went through the training course already. So I am a certified mediator, certified by your facility underneath Shantae Jackson. So I wanted to put that out there. Secondly, it speaks to what I did when I shared in my class about wanting to be a resource and having tools on your tool belt as a law enforcement officer. So there are other options aside from arrest and people going into the system and people being affiliated with that side of what we do. So I actually still refer people to you all. I know when we first started, the way that we did referrals was so different. So I want you to be proud of me because I'm still on top of it. But I wanted to, and my lieutenant is actually on here. So I wanted to, and I love working underneath my lieutenant because two-pronged. So are you all still doing training? Because I know after COVID, and I think, wow, how many years ago did I do that training? So it was when you all started, because it was on Greenmount. It was at that center, and it was over, I think we did it over the weekend. So it was like a 3-day training, so if I can remember, because it was a while ago. So I guess my question is, not to hold everybody, I know you still do the training, but how does that look in reference to the police department's relationship with the center in terms of the training? And two, please, once you give me the answer to one, I'm gonna get with my lieutenant to see if we can send some people over to the next training class.
So the training that you're talking about, Shantae isn't a mediation training facilitator. So I'm not 100% sure of what it was, because it's not 3 days. It's 50 hours. And so it's over the course of like 6 weekends.
Okay, yeah.
We can talk about it. I put my email address in the chat. It's deputy@communitymediation.org. So you can reach out to me. And actually anybody can reach out to me to find out about it. But we would coordinate, we being Erica Bridgeford and myself, we would coordinate with your police department about how to navigate getting you all training, because the training is only offered a few times throughout the year. And people who are currently volunteering all across the state of Maryland are feeding into the hours requirement in order to get invited to the training. And so that's the way that the process is. That's traditionally the way that it has been. If entities are looking to secure their own mediation training, that's something that we can talk about. So for example, if you have 12 to 16 officers in your specific department or in your area, and they want to become trained as mediators, then we would work that out on our side logistically.
Okay, yes. Well, that's exactly what happened then, because it was underneath Colonel Russell. And like I said, it was when that center first started. It first opened up. So that's
since 1995.
The one on Green Mount? Okay. Yeah. Well then, hold on, let me see. Yeah, we definitely did the training at the center on Green Mount, but it was so long ago. And I know it was underneath. So I think what happened was Colonel Russell must have put it together where we went, because we went as a unit. At that time, I was underneath Neighborhood Services. Well, it was called CCD, and then they switched the name. Now it's NCO. But I know I won't hold you, so I'll get your email, and I hope between you and my lieutenant and myself that we can probably put something together.
We have an amazing relationship with different and various departments with the Baltimore City Police Department. One of the things that Mr. Tomlinson reminded me about is that we do youth police dialogue circles in Baltimore City schools with police officers and youth so that they can rebuild, repair, renew, and have amazing relationships outside in the community. So
excellent. So we're gonna thank you both so much. See the relationships and connections. Our students are going to be writing about this in their reflections, because all this was happening while we were here on this Zoom. And at this moment, I did share with our current students in the room and our panel who just concluded, but some are going to be hanging on from Baltimore to Kingston. We had some persons who spoke earlier. We have our next panel guests, which includes Dr. DeLacy Davis, Dr. Tyrone Powers, yes, Dr. Ortiz Minaya, and Dr. Muhammad. And we should have Sheriff Bilal from Philadelphia joining us. And I will share just quickly, I shared this earlier for those who missed it. Dr. Rhoden-Trader and myself had the pleasure of being invited to Kingston this summer, where we served on a panel with the persons who I just introduced. Sheriff Bilal is not quite in the room yet, I don't think. And we talked about some of the things we've already addressed this first half of our class tonight. Our now current panel guests are persons who, two at least, and Sheriff Bilal, the other person, are retired or former law enforcement professionals. And they're going to be sharing some of their work, their insights. And just as a reminder for them, this is the Policing Inside Out class that was brought to us by Dr. Bahiyyah Muhammad, who trained Dr. Trader and myself via the Dr. Muhammad experience. I also will note that Dr. Ortiz Minaya is he was a fellow, and he is the person who brought all of us via his hard work in Kingston. Like, for example, he's the person who introduced me and Dr. Trader to Mr. Tomlinson because of what we were able to do in Kingston. So just want to thank you all for joining us. I'm actually going to just have Dr. Muhammad introduce herself first, and then just you guys can go around, but I'll say your names first, and then you can begin to share. Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. We're so happy you're here.
Yes, I'm so happy.
And you can go right ahead, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to make it tonight for this, what I know will be a riveting conversation. Greetings to everyone. I am Dr. Bahiyyah Muhammad. I'm currently serving as an associate professor in the Department of Sociology and Criminology at Howard University. I've been there for the last 9 years of my tenure at the university, and currently I'm serving as the undergraduate director for the criminology program. I am the founding director of Policing Inside Out, which was born at Howard University out of the outcries of students who were angry and frustrated with all of the disregard for Black bodies that they felt were happening and the sensationalization of things that they were hearing and seeing in the television, in the news, and all over, and wanted to identify a way to be able to address their concerns and issues in a space where they felt they would be heard. And so I created a course immediately out of these outcries from students, reached out to the president of the university and was able to get a course on the books for the full university entitled Policing Inside Out. And that course is a culmination of what you all are experiencing now, but really just brought together three very important pillars of success and innovation, and that are the students, law enforcement officers, and the community, and bringing them into a single space over 15 weeks to engage. Much of this model and thought process came from my work with children of incarcerated parents who oftentimes during interviews talked about the ways in which they engaged or did not engage or felt invisible during the time of arrest of their parents. And so this was kind of an extension of that. And I'm excited to be with you all this evening.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Minaya, if you do, please do introduce yourself. Thank you again for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm quite excited to be here with you this evening. My name is Dr. Reynaldo Ortiz Minaya. I'm currently an assistant professor of criminology and sociology at Howard University. And the main reason why I invited the particular panel we have before us this evening to Jamaica is because of the work that I've been doing around the world, particularly in South Africa and Palestine, looking at policing practices and homicides and the similarities to the US. And I look forward to the exchange this evening, especially given the ongoing homicide rates in Jamaica and also the increasing number of urban violence and homicides taking place in the US. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davis.
Good evening, everyone, and certainly to my colleagues as well as to the students. I'm excited to be here. Been up since about 5 o'clock this morning, but I wasn't going to miss this at all. And certainly honored to be a part of this panel. I'm a retired police sergeant from East Orange, New Jersey. I currently do a bunch of things. Part of what I do is I'm the executive director for the Family Support Organization of Union County and Plainfield, New Jersey, and we provide support, education, and advocacy to parents of children with special needs. In order to have the job, you have to have a special needs child. As a police officer, as a single dad, I adopted 4 children whom I met while working as a police officer, 3 girls, 1 boy. The youngest was about 11, 12 years old when I met her. We were arresting her for stealing in the city. And her mom had mental health challenges and her dad was doing life in prison. And my oldest child at the time, he might have been 16 or 17. And so the youngest is now 33, the oldest is 38. They're doing well. And I have 1 birth child, so I'm a girl dad. Additionally, so I do that work with the Family Support Organization. Additionally, I work with New Jersey's Alliance of Family Support Organizations. I'm the director there, and we provide technical assistance, support, and training to all 15 organizations that are contracted in the state of New Jersey with the Division of Children and Families, as well as making sure that we go on the ground in their agencies to ensure that they're meeting the obligations of their contract, as well as actually meeting with families to make sure that they're satisfied with the services. And then finally, I teach at Rutgers University several times a week in the School of Public Affairs and Administration. And I'm actually teaching nonprofit management, servant leadership, and all those types of courses. And then I'm the founder of Black Cops Against Police Brutality, which I founded in 1991, which led to all of this work that I'm doing. And my research is around implicit bias and police use of force. So I'm excited to be here with you and our colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Powers.
Good evening. Glad to be here. Glad to reunite with this group. So much knowledge and so much experience. I'm a former state trooper and a former special agent with the FBI, CEO of the Powers Consulting Group, and just a whole lot of other stuff, but I'll just cut it short so we can get to the chase of the panel.
Thank you so much. So one of the things that we've been talking about as it relates to our class, we're at the midway point for Policing Inside Out Fall 2022, 5th cohort in Baltimore City, is that our class is designed to address community concerns. We have had consistent guests, classmates with us from Kingston, Jamaica. We've also obviously had our students from Coppin and Morgan State, community members and law enforcement professionals. We've had law enforcement representing different jurisdictions throughout the country, one including, for example, the chief of police at Southern University, who just logged off, but she's connected. We'll share what she may have missed with her. In addition to that, we also are looking at the notion of building police community relations. So one of the things I like you all to kind of chime in on, because the conversation piece is, what are some models or means by which you in your work, independently and collectively have been addressing some of those community concerns and specifically building police community relations? I can share some things that I know, but you can share with the group based upon your own experience and your lens. What are some of those things that you have done in your work? And in addition, share with our class how they can be a part of this beyond this class fall 2022. So any one of you can chime in, and you have the mic.
Well, I'll jump in first. That's fine, since everybody's jumping. So let me start. The first way that I think students can be engaged is they can help do the work, right? I think that their voice needs to be at the table. That's certainly one of the things that we do with our agency, but also this is how I got involved with children, involved in the community. We saw problems in the community complained, and I think, and let me talk from two perspectives, both law enforcement as well as from the community perspective. Law enforcement has to be honest about its policing practices, whatever that may be. Because in fact, if you're not honest about the practices, then of course what happens, the community rebels against the agency. So of my 20 years on the police force, I spent 17 of those years fighting my own agency. And I mean, fighting them tooth and nail. Of course, it took some time to be redeemed because now we see the work and we see the value. And now, of course, they're calling me in to come train them now that I'm retired to say, hey, how do you do this kind of work? So I think you have to have a pathway. We have to have honest dialogue. We have to continually look at the plans that we're doing and the activities that we're doing in the community and whether or not the community wants it. You know, Dr. Powers and I talk often about the Peelian principles, that the community are the police and the police are the community. And while they practice that in other communities, in our communities, marginalized communities and communities of color, we don't get that kind of policing. And it doesn't matter what color the police officer is, generally speaking. And that's from here to the West Coast. And so we think that, one, you have to first have an honest dialogue. You have to engage. You have to be willing to challenge your practices and the biases that are built into the practice. The police as an institution behaves as it was designed in some communities, and it's not in the interest of those folks who don't have influence over the system. I think once we can get past that point, and I'll give one example that I know you've heard before, Ras Baraka, who came out of Howard University, but also lived here in Newark and is now our mayor, he had built out an organization called Black Nia Force. And I had Black Cops Against Police Brutality, and we were similar in age. And so what would happen is, I wanted to learn more as a police officer. So they challenged me to come and learn from the nationalists in Newark. They wouldn't let me bring my gun in. They searched me every time I came, and their meetings were 4 to 6 hours. But what it did was it humbled me in this community because I now understood their perspective, the things they were reading, their experiences that they were having. And I challenged my own department. I said, all Black officers should have that experience because we're not taught to retreat. We're not taught to step back. And what happens is we believe that we're simply right because we're the police, and we are not. So that's the approach that I took. It's a hard line approach. It's in your face. It's confrontational, but I think it should be because I still live in the city of Newark amongst my people in the community. And that's where I think we should be. We're going to have the most impact on the community.
Thank you. Someone else want to chime in on that question?
I've always kind of fundamentally understood and then not understood our approach to better policing in our community. First of all, in every community around the world, most people are policed by people who look like them. So I've always said, and you've had guests on tonight I was on a panel last night with the state's attorney from Prince George's County and the deputy chief down there who's Black and the head of homicide. And so I've always said that to ask other people to police us appropriately and properly means that we have to deny the history of this particular country. So I don't know why, and I've pushed this, and I know when Mayor Kathy Pugh was mayor, she was trying to push it, that Black people should become the police. The Irish was mistreated by police when they immigrated to the United States. So they made a conscious and strategic decision not to ask people to police them better, but to become the police. So they took over policing and politics. And if you go to most cities throughout the country, you'll see the commissioner is Irish, and that many of the people in the police department are Irish. And Baltimore City, a city that's majority Black, we have Morgan State University, we have Coppin State University with a criminal justice program. We have Bowie State University, where I teach as an adjunct with a robust criminal justice program. And for whatever reason, our approach to asking for better policing is to ask people who've never policed us properly to police us better, when we have the wherewithal, we have the population, we have the education to become a police and police our own communities. I've always indicated that to expect otherwise. Now, I'm hoping that I want to believe in the good nature of human beings in general, but to expect otherwise would be just like expecting, for whatever reason, the Israelis to appropriately police the Palestinians. It's not going to happen. So Palestinians have to have their own authority, their own policing. You won't see Chinese policing the Japanese citizens, and you won't see Japanese policing Chinese citizens. And nobody called that racism or anything. They just realized that if you want to serve and protect your people, the best people to be in a position to serve and protect your people are your people. Now, we do have police officers in leadership positions. Again, you just had some of them on. I met with some of them last night, and they're very effective and very intelligent. But what I don't understand is why we're not recruiting more of us. I mean, the book that you took leadership on, Why Black People Should Train the Police. My question is, why don't Black people become the police? Because no one's going to treat you better than your own people. And grandma should be able to yell downstairs and say, is the police downstairs? And somebody says yes, and that's her grandson. Now she feels protected. The community feels protected. But the protests that we have over and over again throughout this nation to get people to police us better, when we have the wherewithal, the education, the population, the school systems, the ability to train to become the police ourselves, I'll never understand that, because I don't really believe in whole. I think Dr. Davis mentioned how policing was set up in whole, that policing will ever be fully effective in our community until we become the police. And to me, it's a simple solution. And there is some history with that, with the whole reason the paddy wagon is called the paddy wagon is because the Irish refused to arrest their people for petty crimes. They would take a wagon, go pick them up, take them home so they wouldn't have felony records, so that they could elect, so they could run for office, or so they could get positions with security clearances. But they decided that the only way we assure proper policing is to become the police, not to ask other people to treat us better, even though they should. An aggressive and progressive stance would be for us to become the police ourselves. That's community policing to me. Short of that, we're just asking people who have never demonstrated that they will fully and mass properly police us to do better by us, and that's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive, and it's counter history.
Thank you. Dr. Ortiz-Minaya.
Yes, I wanted to interject with two observations and then one possible suggestion, given my take on this globally. No, the first thing is that irrespective of the country that I've been to, whether it's Jamaica or South Africa or Palestine and a number of other ones, there's a commonality, and that commonality is that from the standpoint of the police or law enforcement, there's a vehement disdain towards the people that they are policing. And I think that disdain has to be contextualized, whether that is based on race or religion or even gender and sex. And in that regard, the question then begs, how do you challenge that? Because then part of that observation will lead you to see to what extent are the police themselves being tasked with managing a problem that they've been told to manage. And that's in terms of the inequalities that trickle down because of the system that we are engaged in. So that's one thing. Another common problem that I see is that a lot of the times, the people who are the victims or the ones being policed are more and more often than not the ones at the table making the decisions about their own communities and the community practices. And I think that's a major problem. I thought Dr. Davis was going to drop on us the Hegelian aspect of understanding that the people who are going to know the most what oppression is or what police brutality is precisely those who are the victims of it day by day, no? And that we're talking about 19th century slave mentalities. But that being said, I would argue that the youth are the core or the core solution of understanding how do we stop what's going on in a proactive way and not in a reactive way. And as the panel knows, I just spent almost 10 months in Jamaica. Things are getting worse there, but there are global patterns. The US leads in some aspects, but it can also learn from other practices, not only with the police, but also in the prison systems around the world.
Yeah.
Dr. Muhammad?
Yes, I think for me, in terms of the things specifically that students can do are, a multitude of different things. Starting with making a decision on what they want to ultimately do. I think in a lot of the coursework and a lot of the engagement that I've had with students as it relates to their engagements with law enforcement, there's an intergenerational understanding that's passed down. And many young individuals don't question the reason why there's a hatred in their households for law enforcement. There's a hatred in their community, but understanding that ultimately can help in determining what they will pass down to the next generation. In many of the courses, we have found that students have made a decision to think about how they got to where they were. Many individuals come into these classes and they're very upset and angry and frustrated and, not knowing, very heavy, to be honest, not knowing what direction they're in and really afraid to make a decision because they don't want to go against what their grandparents have taught them, what their communities have taught them as it relates to 5-0 or 12 or law enforcement or whatever the term is that's going in their particular state or community, as opposed to being able to humanize individuals. And so I think it's important for students to think about their intimate experiences with law enforcement, with the media, with the engagement, and how they actually came up with what it is that they feel and make a decision on what they want to do with that. They can go into the force, they could educate themselves, they could do research studies on it, they could work with young individuals to understand and help them as they're growing their young minds. There's so many different avenues that individuals can take, but I think being courageous enough to be able to have those conversations inside of some of their own homes that oftentimes students are bringing into the classroom as toxic environments as it relates to the social capital that it takes to have these conversations in the household. And this includes children of law enforcement, right? Like there are a lot of students who take these classes and they have a hatred on the inside of themselves for their own mothers and their own fathers. And at the same time, they may be utilizing the money from that particular occupation to even pay for their education, but not having the courage to have the conversation with their family members that they're having in the dorm with their peers. And so sometimes taking on some of that ownership for these feelings to then bring it into, their household. So I think being able to, know what your experiences are, and then also thinking about ways of talking about it, knowing what your experience is, knowing what you've grown up with as a student doesn't make it automatic for you to be able to talk about it, to put language to it, to put words to it. What specifically happened? How old were you? What were these, sort of experiences that then led you to feel this sort of way that leads you to interact with individuals in this way? And I think it goes from a multitude. And when I say students, I'm not just talking about the college students, but law enforcement students, community students, students that are on the campus of the college, anyone that is a lifelong learner. I think being able to understand these relationships and dynamics between law enforcement as a process, that what you may feel today when you first start this experience could be something very different than, when you originally started the university in general, and it may change as your interactions change, but being honest enough to understand what your experience is and own where you are, and not take that feeling just because it was passed down to you in leniency, but understand the power that you have in deciding and owning your own narrative.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. So I'm about to ask my last question for the evening, and then I'm allowing all of us to kind of ask questions and have this conversation. Dr. Ortiz-Minaya, if you can kind of set the stage to enlighten those who are not familiar with what your work has been globally, and specifically what you were able to do during your time in Kingston, Jamaica. Please enlighten us about that and share like any takeaways since that time. That would just be helpful for us to have a full understanding of part of what you shared. And then Mr. Tomlinson, who is here, one of the persons who represented as a violence interrupter when we were visiting, he can possibly chime in. And all the other panel folks can share a little more about like that experience and how maybe we're making connections between what we learned while we were there and you know, what we experienced while we on a US soil. So thank you.
So for the last 7 years as a Fulbright specialist on mass incarceration and rule of law, I've been moving between South Africa, Palestine, Pakistan, Hungary, Romania, and then finally Jamaica, looking at global trends in terms of homicides and also in terms of the increase of mass incarceration. So that led me to Jamaica. Jamaica in 2016 experienced the homicide rates akin to that of Detroit. And if you all well know, that the insidious rates of murder per capita in Detroit. Unfortunately, as it stands right now, Jamaica is always tit for tat between Jamaica and El Salvador as the homicide murder on planet Earth. That's in terms of looking at statistics and in terms of understanding what's going on planet Earth. However, my angle to this is a bit different. I was born in Dominican Republic, but I was raised in Newark, New Jersey. This is how I met Dr. Davis when I was a young student at Drew University. There's one thing that's been quite clear for me. The United States has perfected locking up Black and brown people. They have perfected the prison system. And if you remember historically, the last two countries who had the highest murder or the highest incarceration rates aside from the US, they themselves had internal revolutions, and that was both South Africa and the former Soviet Union. So my work is trying to look at what are the global trends, however asymmetric they may be, and then also understanding the differences. Then I get to Jamaica in January 2022, and by the time I get to Jamaica, there were a little bit over already 37 murders in the first 22 days of the year. As it stands right now, Jamaica is under about 1,200 murders, and we're still in October. So clearly, there is a serious problem with homicides in Jamaica. The narrative, and I hope Milton is still here. Jamaica is a very layered situation there. The problem is not race, the problem is it's an issue of class, but understanding the colonial angle to the police force in the late 19th century. But then clearly, like most of the Caribbean, there's this phenomenon that they always want to look towards the US at where the solutions lie. And that's a problem. Why is that a problem? Because even in the US, I think is over 500 and plus shootings, mass shootings so far in the US this year. And that's only if you count, by definition, more than 4 people being injured and or killed. So in a nutshell, the work I do is trying to put people in contact, put organizations into communication, whether at the State Department level, at the diplomatic levels, or even at grassroots level, to try to understand what's going on, and most importantly, put the community at the center of this discussion. And that was the main focus of the 2-day symposium, looking at violence in Jamaica and violence in the US, and looking at the similarities and differences between the two nations.
Thank you so much. And If anyone else wants to chime in on that experience and takeaways after that, please do so. But also, if you are here, you have questions, we have a powerful group of people here who thankfully were available to join us tonight all at the same time. Their schedules are very tight. If you have a question, please do raise your hand and or unmute yourself to ask your question. Let's see. And I'm not sure if Dr. Trader has one at the moment. Let's see, I'm gonna make sure I can view you guys properly.
I don't necessarily have a question, but just a follow-up to Dr. Powers' comment about people of color or Black people policing themselves instead of looking to others to police. And then, I had the question of, what about a place like Jamaica where there's homogeneity in terms of the constabulary force? But then Dr. Ortiz-Minaya addressed it, looking at it's not necessarily a race issue, but a social class issue built around colonization. And so it also brings in the notion of the disdain for the people they're policing. Colonizers have done a masterful job of bringing about this disdain for persons of color. So even when you have a law enforcement agency that is Black and of the same cultural experience, looking the way that people are viewed or how they are treated, I find that the constabulary in Jamaica has always been a heavy-handed constabulary, one not to be messed with, that they don't take things lightly. They're not thinking about the humanity part of it. I'm talking about my own rearing and my own observation as a Jamaican. They're very rigid, and whatever they say, it goes, and you dare not question them. But that was the culture. When I came to America, I saw the police as helpful people you could call. I learned that there was this 911 system, and that if you called it, you should expect that these persons are going to come and see about you. So, but I also have a different purview now. I do appreciate 911, and it does work when I've called it. I try not to call it often, but I do have angst and concerns about law enforcement, particularly just as a parent and as a parent of a Black child, and all the things that have been happening. Not that it has not happened in history. Dr. Muhammad talks about, knowing, I believe she was alluding to also knowing the historical context and being honest about how you feel about it. And in being transparent, I'm being honest in saying that in my latter years, as much as I read about criminology, I practice, being a criminologist, as an individual on the micro level, it concerns me, and I do have angst about law enforcement. And last week's class, the talk, Battle said, well, why did you have to have the talk? And I openly said, I didn't have it with my daughter, but somehow I felt compelled to have it with my son because of the milieu within which we live, the reality of that. And I'm saddened that I had to, because he is pushing back against having that talk. But I felt it was my responsibility in the current climate to have it. And if I were in Jamaica with him, we would be having the talk as well. So equal opportunity. And my heart is very heavy. Not that I don't know the stats, but being transparent, Jamaica is a very violent place. It's a land of my birth, and it's a place I love, and I'd love to be able to live there, but I cannot because of its crime problem. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just add something real short. In policing, when I'm talking about police officers who are Blacks who become police officers, there's an evolutionary process, which is a whole nother discussion, psychological discussion. You sympathize with the victims of crime, and then you become angry with the victims for being victims unless you catch yourself, unless there's some intervention and training and mentoring that says that they are still victims, because you see so much pain. And I know during the course of my career, then you want to know why these people put themselves in a position of being victims, and then you become a victimizer too. So if you don't get out of it, steep right, get the right kind of leadership, and I think that we do have the appropriate leadership in certain police departments, and some of the leadership that you were able to have on tonight, I think we were able to have. We have the right leadership in certain police departments, but it's a mindset as well as a color thing. And now that we're in this thing where we have essentially made crime a commodity, that too is a mindset. It's a psychological mindset in different places. But I do think more Blacks in policing is very effective. In Prince George's County, for example, their homicide, they have a clearance rate of 76%, meaning that 70% of their cases, or close to 80% of their people who commit homicide are caught, arrested, and convicted. In Baltimore City, it's 43%. In Prince George's County, the head of the homicide division is Black, and a lot of the officers involved with that is Black. In Baltimore City, I don't even think there may be 1 or 2 homicide detectives, period, to even communicate or engage the community. So it is a mindset. But once you start this wildfire, a commodity, or making crime itself, violence itself a commodity, like we are seeing in Jamaica, then it's not just about violence protecting drugs or violence because of territory. It's just a commodity in and of itself. And if you don't intercede, intervene, and stop it, then it knows no boundaries. It will be in Jamaica, it will be in Baltimore, it will be in other places. That's why it's so important and significant for Blacks who are very conscious to be in police leadership positions, so they can prevent young officers from gaining that mentality where they sympathize with the victims and then they hate the victims for being victims because of the way the victims make them feel about their victimization, and then they become a part of the problem. But that's another discussion. I talk to it with police officers all the time about that evolutionary process and to stop themselves before they get there, because if not, you'll have totalitarian policing, whether it's Black or white.
Thank you so much, Dr. Powers. We had one person, I think they logged off mistakenly, but battle number 2, please ask your question.
Good evening, everybody, for the panel. Again, awesome, everything in the way you guys articulated. So my question is for the panel as a whole, and being worldly, or anybody else on the call, is there anybody who has seen a working model of what Dr. Powers was talking about? I do feel like of the troops for the troops, like you should police your community and it should be from the community policing. But for colored people, has anybody across the world or anywhere, is there a working model where it's like this community, this, this country, the city, the state, this is this, they have community members, they're colored people, they're Black people, they police it, and the crime is relatively low, or like, for lack of a better word, a Wakanda, if you would, like, whereas there's an actual working model where the theory of this is out there and it is like actually happening and in practice.
I don't know of any place offhand. I think part of the reason why is that we haven't even begun that process of thinking like that. I mean, we're trying to do that on the college campuses, on HBCUs like Bowie and other places now where their programs are growing tremendously in criminal justice, and you have the state's attorney teaching there and people coming in and they're seeing that this might be something for me where I can take my consciousness, not just be a Black police officer, but to take my consciousness and merge it with that. Because if you think of someone like a Reuben Greenberg in South Carolina who said, I'm never going to have community-oriented policing because I understand our community. I'm going to have victim-oriented policing. My first object is there will be no victims in the community. He said, because you're not going to come together in a community with the very people who victimize you. In other words, they were having these community events where people were coming out, they had food and all, and people were sitting right next to the person who killed their son 3 weeks ago, but they couldn't talk to the police about him. And we thought that was a wonderful event because we were bringing the entire community together. And there were very people sitting there saying, they're bringing me together with the murder of my son, but I can't tell them, and they're bringing me in close proximity. So his philosophy became that I'm talking about policing Black people as a mindset, as well as more of us being involved in policing. His mindset was, you have to practice victim-oriented policing, where you say none of our people will be a victim. We won't be a victim of the police, won't be the victim of robbers, rapers, carjackers, and then people will come together. Then I can do the community policing. He said, but our language is consistent with textbook language from law enforcement textbooks when we talk about community policing. And in reality, the community is not even a community. And secondly, the people who police the community couldn't define a community if they tripped over it. So there's a process to getting there. But once you get there, I will say again, like the Irish did when they decided to take over policing and politics and ran in Chicago and every other city, even here in Baltimore, when Martin O'Malley became mayor of Baltimore, the first thing he did was went and got an Irish commissioner in NARS from New York City and said that Irish are going to control this city like we control any other city. But that mindset and then a positive form of policing, not what we were talking about in Jamaica, because that's a mindset and a color. But I don't even think we've started to have that conversation in a way. I think we've been duplicating and replicating what we've read from the criminal justice and law enforcement textbooks, when if we want something different, we're going to have to do something different. And I think we're very close. I think, as I said before, Kathy Pugh, before her troubles, brought me in and said, listen, Tyrone, I want you to create an organic policing model. I want you to start developing our young people from kindergarten all the way through. I'm gonna give you access to the schools. I'm gonna give you the resources. I'm gonna give you officers to go with you. And I want us to not think about solving this problem tomorrow, but to begin to develop detectives, because a lot of our people have inductive and deductive reasoning skills anyway. I know Baltimore City and other cities are on this 30-30 initiative where they're bringing in more women police officers, especially homicide detectives, because of deductive and inductive thinking to help reduce homicides in our community from an investigative standpoint, not just from a physical lockup standpoint, but from an investigative standpoint. So I think we just have to pull it together and speak differently and not just replicate or duplicate what we've been hearing and what we've been reading in the traditional textbooks on criminal justice, law enforcement, and policing.
Thank
And
you
I
so
would add,
Thank you so much, Dr. Powers. Go ahead, Dr. Muhammad.
I would add to that the Luletta model, the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy, which is the only one of its kind. It's the first in the nation at an HBCU. They, to follow them. This is a new kind of initiative, but I think this is where it, ultimately starts, where they have a semester-long program. They have offerings of their classes in the evening. It's very different than applying to a sociology and criminology department and quietly having a desire on the inside to be law enforcement, but very nervous to share that in those spaces because of what your classmates may think, as opposed to a unique program that's specifically created for you to do that work in your community. They have a 90% placement rate. We don't have data as of yet because it is new, but I think this is some of the change that we'll look forward to in terms of them trying to recruit individuals to do community-oriented policing and, really try to get students to graduate with the confidence to be able to meet the needs within their specific communities. And what we're finding is that they have a diverse pool of students that are coming in. So not just large classes of male students, but also female, non-gender conforming. You start to see the nuances of the contemporary society today coming, but housed within an HBCU, which I think falls into Dr. Pratt-Harris's book, why we should be the individuals that are training, why Black should be training the police, having it there. I think that's kind of getting us closer to where we may want to go.
Dr. Minaya.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was in terms of Mr. Battle's question, I think that globally, since his question was addressing the global aspect, my observations have been that there's been a sort of a hierarchy and it's been irregular. It hasn't been the same thing all over, but I would argue that the majority of police institutions are historically grounded in the colonial process. And in order for us in 2022 to be able to then undo that, we have to have a very serious conversation about what that means. And I'm not just referring to the context of the US, but I'll give you an example in connecting Pakistan with England and Jamaica. While I was in Pakistan, I learned that the policing and penal codes that are still currently in operation in Pakistan are actually still the very same penal and police codes that the British designed to colonize the Irish. But then we shift that conversation to Jamaica, and the very same thing that in the country of Jamaica today, the police code and the penal codes are from 1920, precisely the very same ones dating back to Pakistan. And here's that triangle of looking at this globally, if you will. So in that aspect, I think that that's a very serious component that has to be undone. I also would share the text by the name of Remember the Latimer by Paul Shackle, and it's a history of the origin of the state police in the U.S. And that actually began in Pennsylvania, where you had Lithuanian, Estonian, and Polish mine workers that were being basically brutalized by the local enforcement, but then there was no way to break the labor strikes, so they formed the first state police and they brought in U.S. Marines from the West Coast. Similar to the way in which Julian Goh, sociologist at MIT, argues that the United States military implemented counterinsurgency practices in the Philippines during the Spanish-American War, and then they turned around and used those very same practices against the Black Panthers and COINTELPRO. So in that way, I can share with you on the side of the law enforcement or the state, the way in which they have circulated knowledge of oppression and particular institutional powers to understand how to keep this thing going on their side. Now, for those of who of us want to change that, I keep on challenging my students that what we also need, aside from what Dr. Powers mentioned in terms of more brown and Black people to become police officers, I also would argue that we need more Black and brown people to command and maintain the institutions of power. And in that way, we can actually create think tanks and research institutions that, in the very same way that the state centralizes all knowledge in terms of their operations, we in the grassroots level also do the same thing. But that's very difficult given the attrition and the resources that are lacking in terms of those of us on the ground who are on the front lines.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know Mr. Coley had his hand raised earlier. If you can hear us. And I'll just share quickly. I was on a podcast recently, and that same question was posed that Mr. Battle offered. And the idea was to model, the example that was given was the fraternal, the Fruit of Islam, and how they managed the public housing projects. The person specifically talked about Baltimore City, that being an example, not funneled through a police agency, but that model where it's like all Black and they are managing what's happening in a particular housing project, probably a floor, and addressing issues that were there and nullifying those issues. Mr. Coley, can you hear us?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, you have a question? Thank you.
My question was, Dr. Trader already saying what I was basically going to say, which is the heavy hand of the police in Jamaica. I'm trying to figure out why is Jamaica, where we have 80% Black, and the police force is at a position where it could deal with the crime system, I think, much better. I'm thinking they could deal with it much better. But behind the fact that it's the only thing that they think of is from the colonial days is mostly being brutal, and this is the way you're going to solve crime. And a criminal seeing this decide they're going to be brutal as well. So I'm trying to figure out if there could be a way where a connection can make where we could get between the criminal and the police. We got an understanding that, if we could even cut down this kind of brutality, and the murder rate in Jamaica could even go down much lower than what it is, because one murder is too much in Jamaica for such a small island. But so I'm wondering if there ain't no way that the brutality between the police and the criminal could come to some kind of agreement where the police would understand that brutality not going to solve it, and the criminal don't see in killing police is an option to get his point across to where you want to get to. Because even the prison system here in Jamaica, which is it's a shame. I mean, it's inhumane as far as I hear it, and people not living as though they're supposed to live, because you cannot rehabilitate a person within a system like this, and the police is not helping to rehabilitate the system either. So I don't know if there can be any connection sometime soon where we could get to across this bridge where we could have an understanding, such as young lady when the young man was saying earlier in Baltimore City, where they get, you know, as a day where criminality or violence would just cut for that weekend, and you could have everybody come together, discuss what they have to discuss. The criminal could come together and discuss with the police, and the police could discuss with the criminal to see if we could solve so much this violence in Jamaica. This is my part, but Dr. Trader was saying same thing. The heavy-handed police system is not working because we got be going on for years. And every year the crime system is going up more. So they need approaches a different way and see if we could get something done to solve this crime thing in Jamaica. That's what I was saying.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Mr. Tomlinson would like to chime in, or Dr. Ortiz-Minaya, or any of our other panel guests on his statement in question. I think there was a connection made though between the Mediation Center in Baltimore and some of the workers in Kingston to bring some resources, possibly, I'm just putting it out there, beyond what we discussed when we were visiting in this summer. But if either of you want to chime in.
Is Milton with us?
Yeah, he's here. He's I'm not sure if he's stationary.
Yeah,
I'm here. Like Patrick and also the other.
I'm here, enjoying this teachable time, you know. I'm learning, I'm listening and learning. You know, it's just good to see those faces and hear those voices, you know. really feels good. You know, first thing, Dr. Minaya, they're working on changing the uniform, the police force. So I'm thinking probably by year end to sometimes first quarter next year, they would finish doing most of the transition as it relates to the police uniform. So that red seam that you see, or police wear, you know, it will be a thing of the past. All right. Secondly, you know, Jamaica, we have a quote of farm that says, out of many, one people. The truth is we are an aggressive nation. That is in our DNA. Secondly, thirdly, what was said just now by Mr. Coley, I think it is, you know, when you use force to fight force, it will never happen. You will never get something positive from that, because the police will come down heavy-handed, and that only lends to the criminals behaving even worse. So it is a tit for tat. I'm thinking it's just strategies. I'm thinking it's just political will to really try something different as it relates to the mode of operation with our police force, and to have a national call to order as it relates to youth programs. We have bits and pieces of youth programs here in Jamaica, but we need to see something, a national plan. I'm yet to see a government comes up with a national, a comprehensive plan, calling all social agencies, our stakeholders to the table, and said, this is a national call to action. Let us see how best we can fix Jamaica once and for all. And I am thinking people lose political mileage, so there might be a lack of interest, you know, to do so. So there's a number of things, you know, as it relates to Jamaica. Now, we have adopted cultures from all over the place that we, I might say, not fully understanding ourselves now. You when you look right now, the drug Mali is taking over our young people here in Jamaica. It is heavy right now, even in schools right now, right? The culture of drinking white rum with the boom in the mornings is like an energy drink with the white rum. So the boom is an energy drink. You drink it with the white rum. So as early as the morning, you will see these guys, you know, with that and a spliff, you know, the marijuana spliff. And the behavior is just out of this world, you know. So we're having a lot of issues, and it's just the political will to really sit down, lock edge, and say, let us deal with this. Time come. I think that is where we need to start, because, you know, I will not sit here and say that the police is a problem. We have a national problem. We have a problem with our youth. We have a problem with our people. Now, the more the homicide gets out of hand, is the more the people resort to anything or take comfort into anything the police do, because they are fed up. And that in itself lends to the police behaving even more reckless, more callous in carrying out their duties. But I don't know, you know. I mean, it probably needs some outside intervention in a real way, you know. Probably definitely need some outside intervention in a real way. And things are being put in place trying to address the monster, but I'm not sure if what I'm seeing is adequate. Right? When you look on the level of discipline in our youngsters, it is just unbecoming. You know, this thing, wearing the pants all the way down, showing the underpants. I think the US, it is banned in most states, most places, but I think it is more rampant here now among our young people, you know? So it is just sad. You know, I work into an educational institution as well, and I can show you, look, on screen, these are some of the signs I have to be making, you know, to show them, to put them up, you know, with the pants, different signs, you know, and we try to use some positive thing with it as well, you know, show your mind, you know, show your mind and not your behind, you know, those kind of stuff. We try to we try to do some stuff, but trust me, they read it, they laugh, and that's it. That's it. They will wait until they see you coming, they pull up the pants.
Okay, it's not working.
So, let me not say it is not working. It is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. So it's funny because we've had this discussion in this class, interesting enough. So this is good for us. I know our schedule has this concluding at this moment, but I'm going to offer a couple of things. Number one, 2 hands are raised. We're going to ask them to ask their question or offer their comment. The next thing is Dr. Trader asked, what does the red stripe symbolize in the uniform for the JCF? And if Dr. Davis and Dr. Muhammad can drop the mic at the end, meaning like wrap it up at the end, just with your like parting words, Dr. Davis, and then Dr. Muhammad, we would appreciate it. So Dr. Manaya wanted to offer something, and Merlene has her hand raised, and then Dr. Davis and Dr. Muhammad. Thank you so much. Oh, first though, Mr. Tomlinson, if you can tell us what the red stripe represents.
I can't say. Sadly enough, I can't say.
Say it again?
I can't say. I can't say.
So there's some speculation as to what it represents. Dr. Trader, is that right?
I'm not speculating. I'm asking the question, is there a relationship? Perhaps the red line is aligned to the Union Jack and this whole notion of separating from the Queen, well, the King now, And maybe that's what that's about. I mean, if you look at the Union Jack, all of that red and all of that, and talking about colonialism, colonization, it could be a push towards that. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ortiz Minaya, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly share that if you separate or put aside the homicide rate in Jamaica in terms from a criminal angle, then crimes in Jamaica are quite low in the comparative sense to other nations in the Spanish Caribbean, Anglo-Caribbean. Right now, San Lucia, which is a much smaller island, is experiencing a very serious gang problem. No? So I think it's good for us to remember, because I don't want us to walk away thinking that Jamaica is this black hole of violence. No, I want to contextualize this. But at the same time, I can tell you, and Milton can attest to this, the irony is that what does work was always least funded and always sort of dismissed and put to the margins. What does work is violence interrupters. And that's a proven fact. And we're talking about getting to the front lines, going to these garrisons and working with young men, trying to deter them away from this kind of behavior. The irony is, though, you have a national security minister who is adamantly against social programming. So in and of itself, that right there is a major colossal monster that one has to deal with. And then that brings in the need to rely on international donors, and that in and of itself repeats that same colonial framework once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Marlene?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I came in late. Internet issues, no internet in my neighborhood all day, just kicked in. So I kind of missed the beginning of the conversation, the thing, but I can touch on a few things I heard a minute ago. I understand where Paul Cole is coming from. It's a bit difficult to address from that angle, but somebody touched on colonialism. A part of Jamaica problem is we're still based, most of the legal laws are set on the English rule from slavery days coming down. Slavery days rule from the courthouse to different rules in the streets, different rules the police go by. So it's time we move away from that, number one. If we don't move away from those old time days rules, we'll never get moving towards being anything but what are we, third world country? Yes, we'll forever be there. And when it comes to the policing, it's a completely different scenario from the US or say Baltimore, since we're comparing Baltimore with Baltimore. Basically, Baltimore has a racial component to the conflicts with their policing. Jamaica doesn't have a racial. We have a stigma attached to certain people, and a certain. I'll have to use that word again. There's too much marginalization in Jamaica. So people are stigmatized, people are attacked, people are put aside, people will be approached differently because they are marginalized. They live in certain communities, so the police go with aggression. They look a certain way, even with the pants dropped down, they are marginal. They're put in a certain group, and the police will go at them with a force that maybe is not necessary. Then the police force itself, I don't mince my words. They are so corrupt that our violence has a lot to do with the policing, because first of all, I don't know who trained these police or who recruit them, but many of our police officers are criminals themselves. That is a part of our problem in Jamaica. Many, and I can repeat, many of our police officers are criminals. The criminal element that is in the police force has contributed to our criminal activities on the streets also. And it is sad because they are the ones we look up to protect and serve. But half of the police force, I might be exaggerating, but that's how many police officers are so criminal-minded and behave like criminals that, you know, it's hard. It's gonna take much for Jamaica to get that criminal element out of our society or down to a low level that can be understood. I don't know how it happened, but I know Japan has 10 murders for the whole year. 10 murders for the whole year. If it can happen in Japan, it can happen other places. But what is in place? Also, our government, they too are crooked. They too are corrupt. They are corrupt. So it's all around in Jamaica. This is not just a black and white thing, because once in a while you see a white. We are predominantly black and we cannot live together. Why? It's within us. It's within all of us. All sectors of Jamaica is corrupt and you have the rich man robbing banks. You have the rich people robbing schools, taking money out of schools. Then the schools are out of proper facilities to teach students. And yet millions are being stolen from the schools, different schools in different parts of Jamaica. So the criminality is just widespread. It's not just those who are marginalized are into criminal activity. And that's what bad for small Jamaica with 2.something million people. It's hard. The hospitals need bed. Most sick people have no bed, or the beds are broken down, or persons sick have to stand up or sit down until they are taken care of. But yet, millions are being stolen from the different government agencies or placed in things, doing things that's not necessary. When Obama landed in Jamaica, when he was to come for one day, I don't think he spent 24 hours. The government spent millions to smooth the roads that he was going to drive on to go to his hotel. But your own native people are in the hospitals standing or sitting because there's not enough bed. Can you imagine even those who make it out of that hospital come out? They are aggressive. They are frustrated with the system for some way or the other. And they know. So the frustration leads to a lot of the crime. People can't bear certain things anymore. The criminality, like I say, is spread out and it's caused by so many different things that you can't even pinpoint where to start to correct this. And the gentleman before said something about a national, he said something that it has to change nationally, or I didn't. Yes, but who's gonna put it in place? The politicians that we have here are crooked. They are crooked and they're not looking out for the people. I don't know why they say People's National Party. Which people? Because they're not. Those are the things they need to work on. They're not working on it. So persons get frustrated as soon as you go out on the street and you pass by a man's car too close and it scratches, he wants to pull a gun and shoot you. Those are the things I'm seeing that is happening in Jamaica that needs to change. But like he said, it's gonna be a national plan across the border, all the politicians coming together to make that change, or else it will not be made.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to say one thing quickly. She's a Morgan alum, but she has several other degrees. But she gave us a lot of insight from her lens. And I just want to thank you for what you just shared. Just straight up and down. This is what she's experiencing, what she sees. So we had 2 additional hands were raised. Our time is ending. But Camille, Jackson, Bailey, and Oral Khan have their hands raised. And we're going to end with, we're going to allow them to ask their question back to back. And then we're going to have Dr. Davis and then Dr. Muhammad kind of answer those questions as they wrap up.
I'm not sure, sorry to interject, but please let we hear from Oral Khan. He's a very
he's gonna offer something, and after Oral, then with Camille, and then after that, Dr. Davis, and then Dr. Muhammad. They can answer their questions or respond in their wrap up. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mine is not a question. I came on late and I listened to some of the presentations, and the last perspective that was shared, I would just like to balance it a little bit, if I may, because we recognize that Jamaica has a lot of problems, but we must also acknowledge some of the things which are being done to address the problems. We know there is a problem with crime, corruption, violence. I work with a body that led the government and opposition and a number of stakeholders to formulate a consensus identifying some priorities which should be worked on, and over time we expect that these will result in bringing down crime, violence, and corruption. There's a lot going on to transform the police force. There's a lot going on to modernize the laws. Lots of new legislations have been enacted to address the concerns. We have introduced the Proceeds of Crime Act. There are lots of legislation. So a lot is being done to address the problems. But yes, it is a bit intractable. So I just want to balance the argument. There are some international measures that we can use, like the Corruption Index, and it will show that Jamaica is not at the bottom of the scale. A previous speaker, one of your presenters, made a point that the real big problem is the violence, and most of the violence is between gangs. The violence is not random violence in Jamaica. It's primarily between gangs, and a lot of the persons who lose their lives to violence are involved in on-the-ground activities. So it's not random violence in the main. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Bailey?
Hi, I'm glad that Colonel Khan gave that perspective and kind of brought a balance to the conversation. I also want to add that any country that has a history of lawlessness, and lawlessness can be as simple as litter in the streets. And when you look at countries like Singapore, where they are so stringent, they're enforcing their laws, because Jamaica has laws on the books. There are laws on the books, but they're not enforced. And so people, after a while, do not take the lawmakers seriously, because there's no enforcement of these laws. And so I think that Jamaica can learn some of these simple things. Let's start with very simple things, and then you'll see how we can build on in just doing these simple things like litter in the streets, ensuring that there are certain simple things in place, and we bring order to the society, and then we can take it from there, because it's huge now. And I think if we bite it off in small sizes, then we may be on the road to some success. But all is not lost in Jamaica.
Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge that Sheriff Bilal from Philadelphia has also joined us, and the last person to speak is Colonel Khan from Kingston. I posted his link in the chat. I'm also going to post some information about Sheriff Bilal, and Dr. Davis and Dr. Muhammad can bring her into the fold to offer her voice as we conclude. Thank you so much.
So that's what I was going to do. So I'm going to defer and let Sheriff Bilal, since she had an emergency in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I will defer. I thank everyone for the opportunity, and I'll give my time to Sheriff Bilal. Sheriff Bilal.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and apologize for coming late. And my voice is so hoarse because the conversation became very deep where we are in Philadelphia. because of the violence that are happening here, especially with children from the ages of 13 and 14 years old. There was a lot of conversations here. So I'm going to defer back to DeLacy. I just didn't want y'all not to think that I was not a part of it. So I'm like just leaving that meeting in my car on my way home with my voice being as hoarse because there's just a lot of things going on here. I just want to let you know I am supporting you ladies. And please don't forget to allow me to be a part of it next time.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Muhammad, wrap us up.
I think this is a very powerful and strong conversation. And I just feel very honored and privileged, not only to be invited for the phenomenal presentation and dialogue that we were able to have in Jamaica, but also to be able to engage in this dialogue here. And, you know, my words are always words of encouragement to not be defeated, that we have the leadership in this space and in this room to not only continue the dialogue, but also implement that into action. And I think many of the individuals that we have in this particular space will be among some of those individuals that spearhead the initiatives that we ultimately want to see. Yes, baby. You want water? Give me 1 minute, you all.
And that's Dr. Muhammad. She's going to drop the mic in a moment. Our class usually goes until 8:30, you know, because of our conversations. It's 8:20 now. On our schedule for the class, it concludes at 8:20. But if nothing else, I think that moment with Dr. Muhammad, our commitment to community is oftentimes led by our commitment to our families. And we're doing all this as we are maneuvering our real lives. Battle One is going to say something really quickly. Thank you so much. Battle?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, glad to see everybody. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. Trying to get my, nevertheless, I think our major issue is that we don't know what the victory looks like. So what does the win look like? Who had, and I know somebody else brought up, like, who has the perfect model, and somebody else brought up Japan has, you know, only 10 homicides at this time or what have you. But in a holistic way, what does that victory looks like? And sometimes we don't know what it is. And we may be on the precipice of it right now and maybe pushing back the opposite direction that we're supposed to be pushing. And I know we got a lot of smart minds in here. I'm actually not one of those guys that are doctors, but I'm pretty sure sooner or later we'll find out what that victory is and where crime should be at. So I think about 3% of the population really just does the crime regardless. And if we just kind of police that 3% along with everybody else properly, I think we'll ultimately come to that victory.
Right.
I don't think it will ever go anywhere. I'm sorry.
That's right. I agree with Battle.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. Oh my gosh. So listen, we are actually going to wrap up right here. I think that was a great way to conclude tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Next Wednesday, for the students in the class, we will be meeting on Wednesday, the 2nd at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have a very special opportunity to join the National Association of Public Defense Conference. And they positioned us to be present via our Zoom for that session. All the students know that you have a reflection. You'll be reflecting on your experience this evening and submitting your commentary via that reflection. Look for the announcement. Thank you all for joining us. Stay safe and healthy. And for the one student who I did acknowledge who wanted to do the I am presentation, if anyone wants to hang out a little longer, please do so. And I'm gonna allow her to do that right now. For all those who have to depart, we really appreciate you joining us. And thank you for this great discussion. Our guests, we really appreciate you in ways you just don't know. Thank you so much. So I think it was Miss Sanders. Is Miss Sanders still in the room?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen. One moment.
Okay, 1 second. Let me make sure you can share. I had to unshare earlier. Unshare, give an unshare option. I think we had a little mistake earlier. Okay. And Marlene, if you want to share your I am, you're free to do so as well. Thank you.
Can you guys see it or?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wait. All right. So I am Kanisha Sanders. Okay. In 2017, I attended Carver High School. There I took a cosmetology trade. I was an A to B average student. My GPA was about 3.5, and I graduated in 2020, which was like the COVID year. Shortly after graduating high school, I jumped right into college. I attended Coppin. Well, I attend Coppin State University. I am a criminal justice major, a psychology minor. Coming from high school and jumping right into college was a drastic change, but I managed to adapt, and I am now a junior with scholarships, grants, and first generation college student. What I do to remain sane and level-headed, I love to pray at any slightest convenience in my life. I also like to journal, and I'm just overall like big on peace and self-reflecting and things of that sort. A little bit about my family. My mom has 2 of my siblings on her side. I have a 39-year-old brother and a 36-year-old sister. I am the baby at the age of 21. My mom and I are really close. For my dad has 5 of my siblings on his side. The ages for that are 28, 26, 17, 4, and 1, and I'm his first and oldest girl. A little facts. Growing up, I have always expressed myself through clothes, hair, nails, tattoos, etc. I've never been afraid to wear whatever it is that I wanted. I could spend hours a day just looking online, putting clothes together and stuff like that. I'm pretty much the one all my family and friends come to when they need help with that and stuff. Me, there I am, 21. Birthday was October 4th. Favorite color is pink. Very sweet, spoiled, fashionable, bright, and ambitious. A little bit about my occupation. I used to work at Cold Stone Creamery, but I kind of leveled up and became a security years later, and I have a license in that as well as experience, and that's all. Okay, how do I stop sharing? Okay, there we go.
Excellent. There should be a stop share button.
Did it stop sharing yet?
Not yet, but I'll do it. I can do it. I think I just did it. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Marlene. I'm having a hard time. I'm calling her Marlene, but I know her as Cousin Pinchy, but that's a whole nother discussion. I don't know if you want to share. Thank you. Like your basically we're sharing our I am. If you haven't shared your I am, like who are you? Some interesting facts, things of that nature. We talked about it. We introduced ourselves in the beginning of the semester, but we didn't have this I am moment for everybody yet. And let's see if she can unmute or she can hear us.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
I can unmute. I don't know about too much more things about this phone. I just have an iPhone, but don't know how to use it. Anyway, I'm Merlene, known as Pinchy. I have several aliases due to my work. Everywhere I work, I put so much into it that I get a name. They also call me Miss St. Andrew. That's the parish I live in. Because I am in charge of, I was at one point in charge of all the primary, all-age, junior high schools in the parish for sports. And all the teachers, also their cricket, football team, whatever, and I was always winning. So I got the name Miss St. Andrew. It's not like I went up on stage in a bathing suit and sexy gown and won it, you know. All right. Then I coach. I like to coach. I coach netball, especially track and field. I still have a few people that runs for Jamaica. So I'm also known as coach. So sometimes I go around Jamaica, they call me Coach. They don't know no other name. I have a couple more names, but whatever I do, whatever I put myself, immerse myself in, I usually come out with a name. I am a graduate of more Eastern High School, which is no longer there. Alpha Academy in Jamaica, Eastern in US, then Morgan State and University of Baltimore. Then UWI, I came back and did my teaching diploma. Then I went to Brazil and did a master's in social economics and labor. And I love school. I think I'll be going to school if I'm invited to go to school when I'm 99, I'll go if I'm able to. What happened is after I did my master's in Brazil, and I came home, I was offered a job to lecture at UTech, University of Technology. But I turned it down because my passion lies in helping those who are marginalized. You must know by now that I love that word because I see where nobody is trying to help a certain group of persons in a certain situation where they didn't put themselves there, the system put them there. And I'm passionate about that. And so I remained at the rural school because where I'm needed. I see where I'm needed there. And I help a lot of students to get past that block that would marginalize them, and then they don't go any further after they leave out of the school in the rural areas. And I think it's just sad, you know. So I place myself there, and it's cheaper money, but to me, it's the value that I put in myself to help people that I get the most out of my successful life. And therefore, I remained in the schools in the rural, some people call it country areas, but it's for me, they need me. They need me and I need them to see them come out better than just finishing that part of the school system. And then there's nothing, just about nothing that the government puts in place for students who don't make the grade, the 100 or the 90s. If they only come out with a 60%, 70%, they get left by the wayside. Some students were not placed after the primary school at one point. They were not placed. So what happens to those students? I would find schools for them to go, schools that would accept them. I would have in the community, I would do sports with them because sports bring people together and give them a sense of belonging. You know, so that's me, and I just go around looking for those people. Those are the people I want to work with. Those are the people I want to help. There's a few programs put in place, maybe through, I wouldn't say through the government, but it's not even advertised for these people to know what to do, where to go, or it's not affordable to them. So I am not about being the richest teacher that has retired, but as the teacher that has used her success as an educator to help others even after I retire. That's me.
Thank you so much. We're always inspired by your presentations, and Ms. Sanders, I'm not sure if she logged off. Both presentations were awesome. Thank you so much. I know Mr. Tomlinson had his hand raised. If there's a little conversation that wants to happen, you can go right ahead after. I'll leave the Zoom on. I know Dr. Trader has to commute. I'm at home tonight. But Mr. Tomlinson, would you like to offer something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Marlene to give me a link up, you know.
Okay.
Because I work island wide really, you know, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, Yeah, man.
No problem.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
Okay. And who am I speaking with?
Tomlinson, Mr. Tomlinson here. Milton
Oh,
Tomlinson.
You met him. You met him when we were there. The violence interrupter.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You guys met.
Okay.
You guys met in Kingston. I mean, at the hotel. I can't think of the name.
The Pegasus. The Pegasus.
Yes, Pegasus.
Okay.
Oh, you did. Okay.
All
Yeah, man.
righty. We will link up.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Okay.
Dr. David, you want to say something?
I'm gonna say good night. I wanted to stay and listen and be respectful and hear our sisters out. So I'm thankful for the opportunity as always, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and share in this space with all of my colleagues and the students.
Yes, thank you so much. Beautiful night, guys. Wishing you all the best. Safe travels if you're traveling. And I know the Battle Brothers will be sharing a lot in their reflection. So we just thank you for your insight. But everyone, good night.
Professor, can I have a question after?
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay.
Good night. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks again, Dr. Pratt.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy.
Yeah, man, we'll be in touch.
I was like looking for your name. I'm like, I have to remember his name. Then I found him. Like, yes, I found him. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, man, that's a problem. We'll be in touch, man.
Yes, definitely. We're definitely gonna be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Cool.
I kept saying, ooh,
I'm gonna make sure I press stop recording because we don't need to record anymore.